everybody, it's time for some KHANTEHNT!
KHANTEHNT!
Digibro, myself, and best guy ever.
How's it going, everybody? Have a blessed night, a blessed day.
We're talking about Luigi's Mansion 3, and before we even get into it, for people who are watching this on the day it comes out, I have to apologize for the fact that it is a Tuesday, and it's supposed to be Anime Tuesdays. We broke the rhythm because of the fact that Konosuba came out on the 14th. It hit theaters just in time for an episode on Friday, and I needed time to play Luigi's Mansion 3 because I was busy with other shit. I got all kinds of stuff going on.
That's going to be a big Gomen Nasai from the team here. Big old Gomen Nasai.
And full disclosure, I did not beat the game, but I am literally in the middle of the boss fight with the queen bitch of the hotel. Like, I assume second to last boss. I assume
that's correct.
That's correct. At the end. So, you know, I'm close to the end. I was running up to the line, but honestly, like, I felt as though I mean, I'm glad I made it that far because this is a good game that's interesting all the way through in certain ways, and I don't regret playing it at all. I would probably, I'm just going to say right from the beginning, I'd give it like a strong 7 to a light 8 because if you understand that, like, I consider this a pretty good game, then it won't make it sound like I'm like hating on it because I'm going to point out a lot of things that bothered me in this game.
Sure.
And I don't know how you feel about it because I remember we did a live stream of this game, and if anybody wants to watch it, you did several, I think. How many did you do in the end?
I mean, I only did one on my own of me playing this game on my Twitch, so, yeah.
But it was that we went out and we bought this game together. I have bonus footage I have behind-the-scenes footage of us going to buy this game that I'm going to put in one of my care packs. And maybe we'll release it through a KHANTEHNT Patreon backroom shit later on or something. I like
where your head's at.
Because it's a video of us playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in a Wal-Mart. Anyways, we bought Luigi's Mansion, we streamed it, and when we started the stream, you had some strong criticisms of the game right out the bat.
People were mad. People were mad because I was, in fact, bitching and moaning. And looking back, I know exactly what the main focus of my criticisms were. It was twofold. It's that the game begins. We might as well start at the beginning of the game. It's that it starts cutscene heavy, as these kinds of games generally do. There's a bit of setup and, you know, that kind of stuff to schlep through. Looking back on it, that's maybe I don't know, a 5 to 10 minute period, but that can feel like a long time at the very start of a game.
Yeah.
Which it did. And that's combined with the fact that, and this is something else I want to touch on, but I might as well bring it up now. It's that, so, you know, do you know by any chance, I forget the company that develops these, because it's not like the normal, like, Mario brand Nintendo. It's a separate studio. I forget what it's called. I meant to look it up.
I mean, I think they're a part of Nintendo. I think like a pretty core studio.
Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I don't know if it's changed hands over time. I didn't do a ton of research because I was busy trying to beat the game. But
that's fair.
I have. We should also clarify from the beginning. I've played through Luigi's Mansion. I did a review of it on.
You're saying Luigi's Mansion 1, the original game.
Yes, the first game. I did a whole thing on all the GameCube launch titles, the 3 of them, because there were only 3. And you can go see that on my channel. But you have not played Luigi's Mansion 1. Neither of us has played the second game. So we're coming into this from the perspective of, like, you know, just this is a cool-looking new game that came out. Reviews are stronger than they were for the second game, it seemed like.
I didn't even look at reviews. It just seemed kind of attractive.
I mean, I don't know if I looked at them for more than a second, but it was mostly the fact that it was Halloween and we were both at home and we wanted to do a live stream, and this game came out on Halloween, and, like, you know, so we're coming into it not from the perspective of, like, super fans of Luigi's Mansion. I liked the first game. I have only played through it all the way once. You know, I know there
after
are people
playing this, I want to go back
and
play it again. I'm tempted to go play that and see how it stacks.
It's very short. It's definitely worth playing through at least once, and I would encourage people, if you can't get your hands on these games because Nintendo doesn't make their old games available for some reason, just emulate it. Fucking Dolphin Emulator is great. It is extremely effective at playing GameCube and Wii games. If you haven't delved into it yet, like, it's very easy to emulate games, guys. I'm just telling you, like, I want you to play these classics, and Nintendo should be making them available because it would be good marketing for these new games to get you excited about them through getting to play the old ones on the Switch, on the go, you know? Maybe even polish it up and fix some of the mechanics that I complained about in that video. But we're talking about Luigi's Mansion 3, so it didn't take you long to get into the game, though.
No, it did not. And you can see in the stream me immediately uptick my thing. But let me just say my second other concern at the very beginning, and for when you hear what it is, you'll know of how much significance it is. It's just that like the ghosts are clearly like visually not designed. They stand out completely from like core Mario designs, and I feel they are just very ugly. All the way through the game, the ghosts were just. Just
I'll tell
bad.
you, as somebody
I don't like them.
I've had problems with the aesthetic of like all the modern Nintendo games, where I think that they all slip up in some area. There's something that's a little bit off, and in this case, the ghost designs are like, I don't know, they're overly cartoony. They're
kind of like too realistic compared to like sort of in the sense that like there's too many details in the face as opposed to like the simple designs of Luigi and like the toads and stuff.
I think they just tried to make them cuter in a way, because like in the original game, I mean, they did have a design that was kind of similar to these, and it was clearly inspired by Ghostbusters. Like they're all kind of based on that Slimer design, but like. The ones in the first game are a little bit edgier and spookier in like a really subtle way. The ones in this game have these rounder eyes. They're like cutesier. They're kind of like or DreamWorks-esque, you know?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
And so like they're still supposed to be wacky and spooky, and like they are meant to scare you on some level, which makes them more effective, I guess, than like an actual kids movie trying to make you laugh, you know? But they are like goofy, cutesy characters that are just like a little obnoxious to look at. Not to say that it's like across the board, because there are certain designs that are better than others, for sure.
That's true.
But
that's true.
Everything about this game, there's a scattershot nature to it. It's very hit or miss all throughout, in my opinion. And I feel like it tries to do a lot of things and doesn't necessarily do everything well. But like the core mechanics that were there from the first game. I'm going to have to talk about the first game for a bit, just leading into this. And
Here, let me just finish my point about the design thing, because I just have one final point, then we can move on for the rest of the thing. And it's just that I think that my issue with that is that, like I said, compared to Luigi and compared to the other characters, and even the design of the hotel itself, which feels very clean, which feels very polished, for most of it, and I love that. I loved exploring the hotel in almost every environment. The ghosts, however, are just ugly compared to like they stand out from everything else going on in like the whole game as particularly unpleasant to look at most of the time. And it just I that feeling never went away. Like you see King Boo later and I'm like, oh, a beautiful perfectly round design. I love the little fangs, the glowing eyes. The Boos are they're geometrical perfection. Compared to the Ghostbusters ghosts, it's just again, it definitely seems intentional. They're going for that gross aesthetic, but there's an inevitable clash by inserting Mario characters, and namely Luigi, into the game. That's just it's a pitfall they couldn't have avoided for the style they were going for. Nonetheless, it was a little bit annoying.
Well, they avoided it in the first game by using a different style. You know, it's
I wouldn't know.
Why did they cutified it in a way that made it fall apart, I think, to some degree. It's not that I think the game looks ugly, and like there's going to be people saying we're being like overly harsh on this, but
I'm starting with my biggest criticism of the whole game too.
It's subtle, and it's not like it ruins the game, but like when you look at the first game, especially in comparison, I just thought the designs worked better. The animations were better in the sense that like they felt more desperate and frantic. And in this game, you just kind of slam ghosts on the fucking ground until they die for the most part. But like at the same time, like, so to talk about what the first game actually is, it's like a 5-hour arcade feeling kind of game, but it's all about the exploration of this mansion. And all of the storytelling pretty much is done through just the environment. Or just the fact of what ghosts happen to be there. Like the first wing you go through, you have a father ghost and a mother ghost, and then you fight the baby in the crib. And
that game, by the way, is more of a mystery. Like you kind of don't know what's going on, as opposed to this one, which is totally clear from the start exactly what you're doing.
That's also true to some extent. Like, you don't know about King Boo. You don't know really what's trapping you here. What's the deal with the ghosts? You're just kind of learning. And the ghosts in the house really don't have anything to do with you or King Boo. They're not being guided by Boo. They just happen to be there. and are fighting you, as far as I understand. And like towards the end of the game, you have to go back and collect a whole bunch of booze before you beat the game. So you really have to explore the shit out of this mansion, and it's designed in a very similar way to Resident Evil 1. It's got the horror element, and then there's the element of just being able to vacuum up shit all the time in every room. But like, that felt like, to me, less of a focus in the first game. Like, I don't remember going about obsessively vacuuming everything, or if I did, for that much result.
That's exactly what I did in this game the whole time. I vacuumed every nook and cranny as much as I could.
Well,
and I loved every second of it, frankly.
It's overloaded with stuff. There's just so much to vacuum, and it's addictive. Because
you know what?
Just like
going from this game to playing Pokemon, I see shelves lined with crap in the new Pokemon game, and I feel the desire to suck them up and absorb them and get the money from under them. Just like ever since I played Metal Gear Solid 5, anytime I see a tanker crate like outside, I want to falter it and get those sweet, precious resources
Tell
inside.
me this, Nate. This will be an important part of my judgment. I haven't played the new Pokemon yet, but in that game, when you like press A on things, does it have like a text block? Like, can I talk to a bookshelf, basically?
Some bookshelves, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Not all of them, I don't think.
I like it in Pokemon when every time I click on a trash can, it tells me whether there's an item inside.
You know, I tried the trash cans. Like, I feel like they've limited the scope. Trash cans, you don't get that. Bookshelves, you do. But like, bookshelf is full of words. It kind of makes sense.
Anyway, we'll talk about that more in the Pokemon.
We'll get to that.
We're going to do after this. I think the next episode or something like that. Maybe in 2 weeks. I don't remember. Anyways, so the original game is more of an arcade game, and you can blast through it in like a day, and you can play it multiple times, because at the end you realize that Luigi actually gets a house at the end of the game, and the size of the house is based on how much you collected throughout the game. So there's this incentive to play through it again and try to collect more, do it in a faster time, and when you die, you get set back a like significant distance, and you have to like go out of your way to collect health to be at full strength if you want to fight bosses. So there's a much stronger difficulty element that makes it feel like, again, more arcadey, even though it's so based on exploration. This game does not have those properties. It has properties of the original that were fun, and it really amps up the collectathon element. It amps up the combat element, because in the original game, combat was much more simple and kind of more frustrating a lot of the time, though this game again has some frustrations. But this one's more about like cathartic combat, cathartic cleaning up, lots of different ideas. Like, each floor is a totally fucking different world. It's more like a Mario game in that regard, which, as I understand it, the second game had like 4 different mansions,
Okay.
So it wasn't one central mansion. Now it was more about having a variety of things. And like, it's just obvious that Nintendo's of the mindset of, let's just make it bigger. And what's the appeal of the bigger game? Which I think is a question they've been asking themselves a lot lately. When they make Breath of the Wild, it's very different from other Zeldas, because they think, well, we want to make a big one. What is the appeal of the big game? And in this case, the appeal of the big game is meticulously vacuuming everything.
It sure was. And everyone can see when we start playing, I'm almost immediately falling in love with the gameplay loop of enter a new room. Your spidey senses tingle as every single surface has things that can be sucked up, and you've got several different mechanics that you can use with your poltergust or whatever to see how you can interact with them, whether it's going to be normal suction, doing the little jump hop thing to break certain things, if you have to use the suction cup thing to attach a certain stuff to swing it around and smash it open on the floor, or the X button thing to make things real, invisible button thing, whatever it is. And that loop of clearing out room one by one was deeply satisfying. Although, on the subject of that, it sounds like one of the main differences in this game, it's like once you've cleared out a room, there's a couple things that bring you back to old rooms, but you basically never will go back there ever again. Unless you're doing I guess if you're going to hunt for those gems or potentially the booze, which I don't think either of us really got to in like the post-game sort of stuff at the end.
Here's the thing. I think even at that point, you would probably only go back to rooms like the one more time to get that other thing out of it. And like to some extent that's true in the first game too. You're not going to go back through every single room multiple times, but like you will go back and forth through the hallways of this mansion over and over again. You'll really be like learning your way around it in the same way that like, you know, both of these games have like a Metroidvania quality to them in a way, in structure, or even a Zelda quality where it's like you continually return through a hub world, but you don't necessarily go down every single branching path you've been through.
Right.
But it still feels very open in terms of what you can do, in spite of the fact that the game is very linear structurally. You know, it guides you through each area for the first time, and backtracking is also just at mandated times in the story. But like Luigi's Mansion 1, again, it's such a short and fast game. You really are going back through those areas quickly and briefly. In this game, you rarely are sent back through areas, and when you are, it's on like a whole different kind of excursion. So it still really feels like a linear game that just occasionally puts you back on floors you've been to, but you only walk back through a few rooms here and there.
Right,
you're never gonna like completely re-explore a floor unless you're just clearing through for booze and shit. And at some level, there is too much. Like, the game doesn't make exploration interesting and interconnected enough for it to feel like you want to go and explore every fucking nook and cranny for another time, you know?
You know, there were times that, like, I walk into a new floor and I'm like, oh god, there's like 10 rooms, I have to go clear them all, I don't know where to go. There were some times that I felt overwhelmed, but I didn't really get particularly... that was relatively rare, and most of the time my desire to go and like collect all the dollar bills on a certain floor or whatever, the fact that like you enter a room and you know basically from the start that there's only so many mechanics that you have at play, you will be able to basically like complete a room usually on your first time entering it. So that, in a way, I found a far more satisfying choice. Like, considering the fact that this game is so linearly built, it would have been extremely frustrating. And you know what? Maybe I'm actually wrong about this because I didn't go back and like look at like the main lobby. Maybe there are things that you can only get once you get some of the upgrades later in the game. That's probably true to some degree. Maybe for some of the gems.
There definitely are, because like even right in the lab room, in that basement 1 room, there's like this gated area off to the side that like you can't access early on. Like you can't even go through the grate until you get Luigi, and then I think even when you have Luigi in there, he can't do anything yet because you need like another power from later, I think. So like there's definitely some of that. It's not excessive, but it's more a matter of like, you really gotta fucking comb over every inch of this game if you want to find all this shit. Like, there is a lot. And, you know, the reward structure of the game, it's very, like, Skinner box in a sense. I mean, I think the whole game is meant to be like a fun house, essentially. Like, you never can predict exactly what's going to happen, but it's always going to be one of 3 things. It's like, either you're going to open this drawer and a ghost is going to pop out, or you're going to open this drawer and money or trash or a combination of both is going to pop out, or you're going to open this drawer and it's going to trigger some kind of event, like a ghost battle, or it's going to open a window or something. And sometimes it's something really cool, and you're like, oh shit, I didn't expect doing this random thing to lead to this fun moment that I had. Maybe you get a gem and you feel like, wow, I'm like, that was a big reward I got for discovering this neat thing. Or you just get some money and you're like, well, okay, I'm trying to collect all the money anyways, you know, I've been picking all of it up. Why not? I appreciate having more money. And then sometimes it's like just a ghost battle, or it's nothing at all. Whatever. It's a fun house. You never know what you're going to get, but like the game is 16 hours long and it's always like this. So it's like, to me, there was a level on which like I continued to enjoy the high moments and the cool things that happen when like I uncovered some secret that was really satisfying. But like just the regular everyday, like sucking up everything in a room, opening the cabinet, and oh, a bunch of sparks flew out again. I'm like, all right, I'm sick of that. You know, like this game could have been shorter and I think I would have enjoyed it more.
That may have
and
been
not only for that reason.
That's fair. That may have been like a better choice from like I don't know, like an artistic. What's like the most ideal version of the game we could make? But personally, I didn't really get bored of that core gameplay loop, probably because I'm the kind of guy who loves grinding in JRPGs. So that probably appeals to me more than other people who are.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like I still felt like I could go for 100% in this game just because there are enough neat things that I want to see.
Well, you know what?
And like
I feel you on that. The thing that brings me to a game. So I have beaten the game. I beat the final boss, and in my perusals around, like the one thing that makes me have any desire to go back and play more is because I don't think this is a game with a ton of replayability just to replay like from the start if there was like a new game plus. It seems to be a game that's more designed for like when you've scoured every nook and cranny. That's is it really that fun to do it again as opposed to digging down into every nook and make sure you 100% clear every little thing to like get all the gems, as you were saying. But so that thing of getting all the gems on every floor, what I would want to do is my instincts kick in when I get to the end of this game and I know that I have not gotten all those items. I think to myself, the main thing I think is, well, actually, first of all, when you beat the game, the mansion collapses and then a new mansion gets built. I believe the idea is that using the money that you've collected during your thing.
Right. That's the same as the end of the first game. So it's however much money you collected, that's the size of the building you get.
I was hoping that you'd be done too so that we could compare our results because I got about $75,000 and my mansion seemed giant to me, but I don't know what the basis for comparison is. So I have no. I mean,
you were pretty meticulously collecting, like from what I saw. Because I mean, like when I played the first game, I really was not that meticulous. The way that I felt, partially because I had watched you play, I'm sure, and like just realized
there was not one room I left
like,
in this whole game, did you, that I did not finish as far as I could. Yeah. Okay.
But
good.
like there was. I mean, at the end of the game, there's plenty of gems I haven't found. There's plenty of... I haven't even found any but the first boo that they introduced you to, and I just assumed you would have to go collect boos all throughout the mansion before the game was over. Like
I don't know where the fuck those boos are. I didn't see a single other one the whole time.
Right. So I don't know if you have to buy the boo radar cards or if you just find them by wandering around other floors of the mansion. I don't know, like...
I'm not going to do that game. I'm not going to do that. I'm not just going to wander aimlessly. Yeah. I might look it up online or something, but...
Right, exactly. But, like, I mean, I think... Okay, collecting all the boos in Luigi's Mansion 1 is the most pain-in-the-ass part of the game because of the fact that they fly through walls while you're trying to fucking catch them. And so you have to just go into the next room and try to do it in there, make sure you're constantly keeping track of them. But like combat in this game is quicker and easier, but because of that, they also will have enemies do even more dodgy bullshit, like go through more walls and fucking run away farther. So like I don't want to have to catch all these boos, even though I think there's only like 20 of them. So maybe it wouldn't be, because in the first game there's like 50.
Yeah, okay.
But like
maybe there's
the
one
gems,
per floor. I don't know.
A lot of the gems are fun to find, and like when you've explored a floor to an extent where you feel like you explored it as much as you know to, and you see that you still have 3 gems missing, you're just like, well, what the fuck did I miss?
Yeah,
like,
I felt that many times. I have no idea.
And may I also state that 100%ing this game doesn't mean getting all the boos and gems. It also means there's a huge list of achievements. I don't know if you looked at them, but
I saw some of those.
There's a bunch of achievements that are for, like, various little random things. Like, okay, there's one room you walk into where you can play billiards. If you do that, you get an achievement for playing billiards in that room. So there's stuff like that. There was one in the garden level where it is, there's 8 of these pink plants that you can shine the light bulb on and they open up and they're like shiny.
Yeah,
and if you get all 8 of those, there's an achievement for it. I got 7 of them and could not find, or maybe it was 12, and I got 11 of them but couldn't find the 12th. Whatever the case, I can't find it. Like, I scoured the level because you have to go back through that level to get the stupid fucking ghost kitty.
Yeah.
Which is, I can't wait to talk about that shit. But like, I kind of, because of the fact that I was led back into that level, and I had thought it was a cool level anyways, I liked it. And I liked the effect of when you shine the light on these flowers because they look really cool. So I was like, yeah, I'll go and hunt those down and get this achievement while I'm here. But I couldn't find the last one. So ultimately, I'm going to have to go back through that stage and scour it again, because if you want to get all these achievements, they're like oblique things you might not have thought about, you know? And And then there's just tons and tons of other rewards. Like, do you want to maximize your cash? There's tons of like weird secret rooms full of golden spiders and shit. Like, there's just tons of secrets in this fucking game.
Speaking about 100% of the game, okay, well, let me touch on that, but let me finish my point before, which was just that my desire is to, I have some desire to go back and maybe get all the booze and get all the gems, but I had heard, I didn't confirm this, but I had heard that there is no, like, what I would want ideally if I was making this game would be you do the extra work of you collect all the booze and you collect all the gems, and, like, that unlocks the secret ending, or like the true final boss. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I'm willing to put an effort to get. But from what I've heard, you get, like, there might have been some small reward, I can't quite remember, but basically nothing. You get basically nothing for all that. And as you said, I feel like I pretty much explored these floors as much as I could. I'm sure I missed things. I'm sure if I went back, I could find things. But does my desire to pour more hours into this game simply to do the collecting outweigh my desire to do anything else? I do not think it does. I do. If there was some sort of secret boss or true ending or something like that, like in like a Castlevania game, that might change the odds. Okay, but I was gonna say, on the subject of 100% of the game, there is another factor that was endlessly an issue in my head. This may have been the most annoying thing to me in the whole game, and it was that cursed fucking fact that once you interact with money in any degree, it stays on the floor for a couple seconds, and then all too quickly it flickers, and then it's gone. And it does, I don't think it respawns. I'm pretty sure it's gone for good. This is a once and done entire playthrough of the whole fucking game. And I just feel like there were so many better ways they could have done that. But even despite that, there are tons of areas where maybe you'll be like on there's a big staircase when you're going up to see King Boo at the end or whatever. And I think there's like a bag you can get with money or something, and when you suck on it, it explodes dollar bills, and there is no fucking way you're gonna get all those dollar bills on this like gigantic staircase that you just ran up. They're going to fall down the shaft in the middle. So basically, the torment of a completionist mindset, such as I have most of the time playing a game like this, but the dollars are all the money's forever out of my grasp, and there's nothing I can do to get it back, was a constant source of agony for me.
It's so strange because like
and there were solutions. There were solutions.
The only reason it's a problem is that like you really have to point the vacuum at the money for like a sustained amount of time for it to enter the vacuum. And when almost anything that explodes out into money does so in like a decently sized radius, or some of it floats while others of it falls on the ground. And, like, in most circumstances, you could get all of it in one go. It's not going to be hard. If you're getting one, like, pocket of money in one go, you're going to be fine. But if, say, like, you're trying to do combat and also collect the money that's exploding out of things from multiple enemies at the same time, like, there's a good chance at least a few coins are going to disappear. And all it would have taken is it even just lasting, like, a couple more seconds, and you would almost guaranteed get all the coins all the time. But it lasts just too little time. But it makes you think, like, what was the necessity of having it all disappear?
It's got to be something to do. It must be related to the idea of like active like events, like programming. They don't want to have too many like interactable objects at once on screen. That's my guess.
Like, it's just like why make it all spread so widely and disappear so quickly if you're going to make it so, like, it's like they intentionally made it in such a way that you are very narrowly able to get it. And maybe this is like just for the pro players, but it's too glitchy for that. Because like coins often go through walls. They often enter like hard to reach spaces. It's not that easy to predict where a honeypot is going to explode a lot of the time. So like you might have it where one coin enters through the fucking wall in such a way that you really have to concentrate on it for a while to get it, and just no way you're going to get that at the same time of everything else. It's like it's too imperfect of a system in so many ways that it makes it just slightly aggravating. And it's almost like I feel like Nintendo in general has this idea that like some element of randomness just like automatically makes everything more fun. And it maybe makes it more addictive, but in a case like this is a game about cleaning. It's like I want to make it spotless. I want to have collected everything. Like that's the satisfaction, is that I cleaned out every room. I got everything I could, and at the end of the game, like there should be. And granted, I'm sure that whatever the amount you need to get is that that would get you the biggest house possible is like an amount that can be reached long before the
I have
amount
some
of like,
information.
expendable income in the game.
I have some updates on this. I just Googled this while you were saying that. And so right now, according to whatever fucking link I just clicked on right now, so the highest rank that anyone's been able to obtain is the one that I got, which is rank A, which you need over $70,000 or more to get, which I had 75,000, so I achieved that. But... And people are saying, according to this article, that people have reached upwards of 90,000 and still got a rank A, but there was a rank S in Luigi's Mansion 1, and this just makes me think, if I got over 100,000, would that have been rank S? That seems like the next logical cutoff point, and no one's done it yet, but presumably it's possible, and now I'm tormented by the thought that I fucked up, and now those ghosts, their new mansion isn't as big as it could have been, because of all this disappearing money all over the place. So hopefully it doesn't torment me for too long. But this amount of frustration is, it wasn't a huge deal, but it was consistently mildly annoying. And like every fight, as you said, you'd be fighting someone, you can see the money blinking and disappearing on the other side. I'm like, I can't do all these things at once. And that was a challenge. My solution would have just been, I just wish that maybe this is asking too much on a programming side, but if they just left the money on the floor until you leave the room, surely that much could have been done, right? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that is too much. There's some big piles of money in this game.
Yeah. Well, I loved collecting the money when I did collect it. And I loved finding unique ways for the money to appear. Mm-hmm. I loved that. I mean, just like, again, while there is a lot of stuff that, like, you open a drawer and there's nothing in there, the amount of things that do happen is impressive. Like, I love finding secret shit that, that not even that it's necessarily secret, just that, like, you don't have to get this stuff. Like
there'll be a big, walk-in closet and you have to pull down some coats and then at the back you see there's a safe. And it's like, I had to explore to find that. My reward is money. It feels great. That's exactly the kind of shit I love doing.
I think if you're playing this game the way that you and I were playing it, then the game, there is as much optional content that you are going to play in just one straightforward playthrough as there is like actual stuff you have to do. And like, granted, you're going to do a lot of the optional stuff just in search of what to do, because a lot of the times the puzzle is figure out which interactable object is the one that activates the next area. So, like, you're guaranteed, unless you know the game, unless you've, like, memorized it, and it's a long game, so, that would take a few playthroughs. Like, I could see people speedrunning this game because it is completely linear, and if you knew exactly what to do, there's not that much randomness getting there. And there's definitely a lot of stuff that you can get skilled at. There's tons of techniques you can use in the game in combat. It could definitely be made faster and faster depending on your skill level. And like, there are legitimate challenges in this game. Like, it starts off like a baby game. Some of the bosses get kind of hard. I died a lot. I don't know about you.
I think I died a total of, I think, only 3 times, and 2 of them were to the final boss of King Boo, because he was the hardest guy. He dealt the most damage.
Well, damn. You are a lot better at this game than I am.
I am a pro gamer.
Well, I found myself often in this game struggling to figure out what the fuck to do.
Well, see, that's the biggest thing, to avoid damage while figuring out how to interact with the boss. Because there's only so many mechanics you have, but it can be a lot. It can be a lot to juggle between them, considering that there are specific, like the goggles. The goggles are introduced so that your flashlight doesn't work. You now need to find some way to get the goggles off. Will it be the blast jump? Will it be just vacuum suck? Will it be something else? It always changes.
And this is like, honestly, my biggest like technical criticism of this game, because I think that this is something that almost, like, I think more games usually get right than wrong, is that this game really does not do much a lot of the time to indicate to you in any way which thing you should use. Because there are certain ways, like in regular everyday encounters, right? Like you mentioned the sunglasses. With the sunglasses, you use the sucking power to get them off somebody's face. That is consistent every time you see sunglasses throughout the game. You got to suck them off the guy's face, right? But sometimes they'll introduce just something completely unique that it does not indicate in any way what you need to do to interact with it. And the answer is just you have to just expend every single possible mechanic until you get to it, and sometimes it's so opaque. I could just jump into talking about one spot that really got me stuck, that I really got fucking super mad at.
I remember having difficulty with the hotel owner lady, but if you want to give a specific example, yeah, feel free.
Okay, do you remember the part where there's a cage in the middle of a room, and there's a key inside of the cage, and when you open the cage, a rabbit comes and
I remember the fucking rabbit. Yes. Yep.
Yes.
That took me a while.
The rabbit starts jumping around the room, and there's this cage in the middle of the room that you can close with the vacuum.
Obviously, you need to get the rabbit in there, right? Obviously, that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Only thing I'm thinking, because if there's a big-ass fucking spotlight on the cage, I can demonstrably close the cage, and I can pick up the rabbit. However, most of the time in this game, when you fire at objects, then it will, like, kind of latch onto them with, like, an auto-target. But the auto-target's not reliable, and not always does it work. Sometimes you do have to aim at stuff. So, like, it's you don't have a reliable answer of, like, am I just aiming wrong? Or, like, is this an aiming challenge, or am I not supposed to use the cage?
Yep.
But then you start realizing that when you follow the rabbit, it will run out in front of you. So you start chasing it, thinking maybe I could chase it into the cage. However, it does not run in any set pattern. Then I thought maybe I need to trap it between me and Luigi. So I tried to do that. This also doesn't work. So at this point, I've been like trying to catch this rabbit for like 10 fucking minutes. I have no idea what to do. I try calling Egad, and he doesn't have any advice for me. So then I turn on the hint messages. So this game by default has hint messages on, and I really think that they rested on that when they developed this game, because there are several places where I would fucking never have figured out what to do if I had not turned on the hint messages.
At the beginning of the game, you heard me on the stream. I turned them off because they were annoying. I turned those motherfuckers back on so fast later in the game. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Tons of the time. This one in particular with the rabbit, I had to Google it. I could not figure out what the fuck to do.
The thing is, as I was Googling it...
Yeah.
Because, okay, I turned on the hints, and I'm running around in the room, and it's not giving me any hints. So I'm just like, the game really thinks I'm supposed to know what to do, but I don't know what to do. So I start Googling it, and because I left the controller idle there for like a full minute, finally Egad tells me exactly what to do.
Oh, really?
Catch it with your vacuum, and then have Luigi shine the dark light on it. And I was just like, why would I have thought of that? Like, other than trying every conceivable mechanic, there's nothing about this encounter that makes me think that's going to be the case, because it's a golden animal of which you've collected tons throughout the game by sucking them into your fucking vacuum.
This is a fantastic
including
point.
In that room right beforehand.
Yeah, this game does some things amazingly well and some things terrible. Like this one moment, it's like, okay, there are many portraits and many like invisible things. That make real button, as I'm calling it, the distortion beam, whatever the fuck it is, like generally speaking, it works on like swirly things or invisible things. This is what we've been like associating with doing it. But now what's happened in the scene is a ghost has transmogrified a key into a rabbit, and we are supposed to have deduced that not only do you, like, you can't just spray the beam on it, you have to have one of your guys, you have to have Luigi or Luigi vacuum it, hold it in its vacuum while your other guy, because you can switch between the two easily, then
like, why
real
wouldn't they
beam
make it
applies
so,
it.
Why wouldn't they make it so, like, when you start shooting the beam at it, then you
reacts
start to
or
see
something?
Yeah, and then, like, but it's just too fast, and that's why you have to catch it. But no, it has no reaction at all.
Yeah.
So there's no fucking way to figure that out. And, like, that's not the only time that this happened to me. Like, there's the movie set level. Good Lord. Did you figure that one out? With the bucket?
I remember. Oh, I did not know how to fucking get. I explored that level for so long. I knew that I would have to warp in between using the TVs, but I did not for the life of me know what the fuck was the start of this chain. And feel free to tell us all about it.
You have to warp between these TVs, and you also, in these 4 rooms, there are cameras set up pointed at these green screen sets. And when you look through the camera, it looks like a movie is going on. And what you're supposed to do is have Luigi go and stand on the set, and he will become an actor in the movie and act out the scene. But, like, I didn't figure that out, And I turned on EGAD hints, and he told me to do that. I don't know if he would have told me without me turning on the hints, but I would never have figured that out. And then...
I figured out that much. I knew how to do that much.
I did not figure that out. And then I, like... The real part that fucked with me was even after I figured that out and I was like doing everything and I knew I needed fire, like all EGAD tells you is you need to get fire. He doesn't tell you look for a bucket, because what you have to do is pick up a random bucket and then take it to this level with water and dip the bucket in the well so that you could then pour it on a fire somewhere, or pour it on a
plant
bean
to
sprout
water so it'll grow, and you can get the fire
get
up there. Of course, that's how it works.
And then you need to take that torch to the level that has fire and light the torch and then take it to dissolve this. Without the EGAD hints, and him, I don't remember how he eventually says to get the bucket or whatever. I think he eventually tells you to use water or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I would not have figured it out. So, like, those are just a few moments, and there are other parts where I was confused for a while or took a minute. And, like, it's not that that's the bulk of the game. It's just that, like, those moments stand out as things that were, like, I guess this would not affect me on future playthroughs, but, like, good lord, could they not have done something to indicate, like, what specific thing out of these, like, countless fucking mechanics I need to use?
Let's juxtapose, because one of my favorite things about the game was fairly early on when I realized that there's like, here's one example of a great mechanic. That, I mean, first of all, there's just the blinking yellow light bulbs that indicate you need to flash this thing. We make that visual association instantly. Okay, got it. But there's a better one than that, because there's one that's more creative and interesting, and I loved seeing it. It was kind of complicated and impressive. And it was that, like, you can put your suction cup thing on something, and then you can vacuum the string off it, and you could pull it. Now, but the way they visually indicate that there is an object you can do that is all it is just a circle. It's just a circle on any surface. It could be on an electrical grid with like a circle around it. It could be like on a fucking stop sign that's a circle. When you see that fucking circle, you know this is a thing I can put the suction cup on and interact with.
Very clever.
And I loved that detail. I thought that was so big brain, great game design. That was like one of the things that most impressed me early in the game. That was themed throughout the whole game.
I appreciated all of the basic mechanics, like, because in the first game you had suck, blow, and fire, and like something else that you got later, like elemental blowing, I guess.
Okay.
Which was weird. But like in this game, you know, you've got the dark light, which can be used in combat and to expose secrets. When it's not used for ridiculous scenarios, it's usually pretty fun to like. Sometimes it's the map that gives it away. Like you can see that there's supposed to be a door in this spot. So you're like, okay, look for the weird part of wall where there should be a door. Like sometimes it's just obvious from the shape of the room. And like, I enjoy those kind of tests of aesthetics, you know, it's there's a blank space on the wall where you would think there'd be a portrait. Let me shine a light there just to check, you know? And that way I don't feel like I have to shine the bright light on every single fucking thing. And so like, I'll talk about some comparisons to Metroid, like some things that this game does better and worse. Because like, compared to Metroid, you know, in Metroid you have like that same kind of suite of powers that affect the environment, but you never know when there's going to be like a random wall that you could power bomb or, you know, visor to see something through. And
which
so,
leads
like,
to the conundrum that you need to do it on every surface in the whole game, and that can be annoying.
And especially in like Metroid 2, I remember like you basically have to spider ball on every surface of the world.
Right,
you know, granted, it's a 2D game, but like you really got to spider ball everywhere. So like, you know, some of the Metroid games do it better or worse than others of like indicating what thing needs to be used where. But like you still basically by the end you're gonna have a huge suite of powers and you're gonna want to go through the whole fucking game and do everything again if you want to find everything with all the powers you have. You know. Whereas in this game, like you're more likely most of the time to know what to use where. But the fact that it's not always 100% consistent with that still makes you kind of feel like maybe you have to do every random thing on every single thing, but where it's consistent, it's very good. And like you said, the plunger, there's always some kind of circle or some in combat, it's used to like take things away from enemies, which is also cool. It adds complexity to the situations. There are certain fights later on where like the combinations of enemies and the different ways that each one has to use different mechanics to take them on, makes some of the fights really frantic and even somewhat difficult at times. If you have to fight like a mimic and two ghosts that are wearing hoods, so you have to knock the hoods off at the same time. It's more tactical. None of that shit was in the first game, So, and there's also different varieties of ghost types. Not a lot of them. You mostly fight the same kind of like 4 or 5 types throughout the game, and most of them are very easy. But I didn't get like completely sick of combat by the end or anything. And also, combat is kind of sparse. Like the first few hours of the game, you run into very few ghosts. It definitely picks up later as kind of a way to just elongate the game by having encounters spring up when you're going back through areas you've already fucking been.
Yeah, that's true. Especially at like the 14th floor, I think there's just constantly gated as you're trying to go between the rooms and proceed. Yeah, I did enjoy the combat for the most part for what it was. Right. I mean, when you finally get the upper hand on whatever ghost you're currently fighting, and you start to do the slams, and especially because you can rack up combos, because when you hit another ghost, then they get stunned, then you can suction them. It's like it started a great chain reaction of killing like all the ghosts in one go, and that can be very satisfying.
I mean, there's always like an element of luck involved to some degree of like which ghosts are going to be in what arrangement at the moment that you stun them. But like I think a skilled enough player would be more like patient about when they stun ghosts, waiting for them to get into like an arrangement and then just bashing all of them at once. Like I think there's definitely potential to experiment with the combat in that way if you were like speed running and trying to get really good at the game. And like again, I do think this is a game that would almost be maybe most fun speed run, except for the fact that you can't skip the fucking cutscenes. Although I will say this, it might be that you can on your second playthrough, because I got fooled in the early part of this game because you played on my Switch when we did our first live stream. So I started a new game. But I was able to skip all the cutscenes up until the point where I'd caught up with you.
No way. What a retarded fucking feature. Just let us fucking skip the cutscenes, Nintendo, you fucking hacks. Why would you do that?
It was so annoying because every single cutscene, it would immediately say, press this button to skip, like right off the bat. And I was like, sick, skip. Then all of a sudden I have to watch them all. And like, there's a lot I really did not want to watch. I did not want to sit through them. Great. I did not give a fuck. So, and that's another complaint I have. But like, this game it's really like these constant ups and downs, but it's not that it's like falling into pitfalls. It's not like the game becomes terrible. I was never like, I got really frustrated a few times, especially shit like that rabbit. But like, I never felt like, wow, this game is bad. It was just like, this is a bunch of fluff and mediocre stuff and stuff that I don't care about, like the cutscenes. Bookending the stuff that's really fun about the game, and like I could deal with a trimmed down version. And again, a second playthrough might unlock that, but I don't feel like I should have had to play through the game twice to get to skip the fucking cutscenes. I mean, I didn't want to watch them.
I totally agree with that. And I mean, I don't know, maybe I was even more annoyed with you than moments like that, because as we've said, this game is very linear, and you hit these choke points constantly, and you have to figure out how to beat the thing. And like that rabbit or whatever, you have to figure out how to beat this rabbit, or you cannot continue the game. And I mean, those were the moments that I was the closest to wanting to just walk away and say, fuck it.
I mean, me too. I mean, consider that I was playing this game like up to the minute. Right. And there were a number of like these moments, even as I'm like trying to blast through as much as I can before we record. Because you like went to the gym for 2 hours, took a shower, like I had plenty of time to play through like as much as I could, but I almost stopped because when you're going up to the 14th floor, the second to last floor, you get stopped by the Boo Kitty.
Oh, yes.
And this fucking... Okay, so this happens twice in the game. There's this pink cat that's like the cat of the mistress of the hotel, and the cat has 3 tails, and it swallows the elevator button. That
can we just say, by the way, the fact that you obtain a button, you achieve the big thing, and then it takes it away, setting you back a step. You have to go now read. I mean, that setting the stage
instantly
for
annoying.
frustration. Yeah.
And the worst thing is, they've already done this in the game before.
Oh yeah, several times Luigi is too pussy chicken shit to just. How many times were you frustrated that Luigi, he simply walks up too slow to get the button while something happens? I was just grab the fucking button. If Mario were here, he would not wait to do this shit, Luigi. You cowardly piece of trash. God, I wanted to strangle this motherfucker. And even then, a ghost would show up, even one that does steal the button successfully, and Luigi would just like stand there and go, oh, whoa, 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 while the ghost steals the button and runs away. When I know you motherfucker, if this was a combat situation, if I was in control of the character, I would just push the fucking A button, flash the light, and I would be able to get it back. But I can't because it's a cutscene, and I'm locked into how diegetically retarded and chicken shit Luigi is, even though I, as the player, would be able to do a better job in the situation. So, frustration, but yes, go on. The fucking cat was like the worst part.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, already you've had the buttons taken from you several times by random fucking creatures, and you had to chase them around and go through multiple rooms, and it was a pain in the ass. But then the cat is the stepped-up version of that, but it's bad in multiple ways. So, first of all, it takes the fucking button, and the first time this happens, it's in the fucking TV studio level, which I had spent over, probably close to 2 hours in that fucking room, trying to figure out what the fuck to do. Like, I listened to, a whole podcast in the span, a long one, in the span of this fucking level, right? Like, I was furious by the end of it.
Did you kill the ghost?
To get to the next place.
Did you kill the ghost director at the end?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I spared him. Why would you do that? He's a good boy. He didn't do anything.
You get an achievement.
Oh, okay, great. You get an achievement if you let him finish his movie and then you watch it too. So
is that true?
I think so. I guess I could be wrong about that.
I didn't know if he finishes the movie because he was just working on it.
He does finish it, and I watched it.
That's
and it
crazy.
Was okay, yeah.
Well, now I regret it because I would like to see that.
That's what you get.
But anyways, does that mean you have to play it twice to get both achievements? Like, what the fuck?
I could be wrong, but you must get an achievement for seeing the thing.
Maybe you can eat him after he shows you the movie.
We could check the achievement boards. I don't know, whatever.
Well, in any case, so you have to go back through the level extensively, chasing this fucking cat. And it's already annoying that you have to do this, especially because I just want to see the next floor. Like, I want to be done with this fucking place. Yeah. But, I'm willing to accept, okay, the game, it's not that you're doing the exact same thing. It uses the level in a somewhat different way. It's not like this is purely lazy. Like, they clearly built parts of the level geometry in anticipation of the fact that this was going to happen.
Yes.
It's probably part of their initial plan for pacing the game was to have these segments, but they're just there to make the game longer. They don't need to be there. They're not fun. Maybe they build anticipation for the next floor to some degree and make it feel like you're not just blasting through the game.
Yeah.
But the game is already long enough. It's 16 hours without doing everything, So fucking it didn't need to be these encounters were not necessarily, definitely not the number of them that there are. Even if it had just been the 2 cat ones and there hadn't been any ones before that, it might have been more acceptable. But the worst part is you go back through this floor for a while, you take off one of this cat's tails, and then it jumps down through the floor into the previous room. To the previous floor. So now you're going back to another floor you already just spent a bunch of time in.
I didn't even know at first that was saying go down exactly one floor. That's where the cat is. I had to fucking Google that shit to figure it out. I didn't know.
If you had Toad's messages on, he tells you right as soon as you go to the wrong floor.
Oh, there you go.
Which I happened to have his messages on at the time. So, I knew that much. But I was also super disappointed because it's why would you send me to the floor I was just on when, there's already floors I've, forgotten about that you could show me a new angle of.
Yeah,
and,
true.
This only happens a couple times, so there's tons of floors that were
how's
not
this
explored
for
again.
A perfect opportunity? Now that you've got these new abilities from, I don't know, the first floor of the lobby, now would be a perfect time to re-explore with more abilities or something. I don't know, open up new areas.
So you go down, you go back down to the forest floor, and you have to
climb up that fucking beanstalk again.
Here's the thing: it just so happens that already because of the fact that I had found out about the achievement system, I had already gone back through the 14th floor just before this happened so that I could try to do all those stupid flowers and failed. So I was already pissed off knowing I was going to have to come back here later again anyways.
Yeah.
And then I have to come back here and do this shit. So thankfully, you take off both tails in this floor, but at the same time, I'm also kind of disappointed that they don't utilize another floor, you know? Like, but whatever, you take all the thing's tails, but here's the worst part, is that what you do is you chase this cat, and first of all, the way you find out where it is you have to shine your light at, like, its tracks, but you don't know where the tracks are going to begin, because they don't begin right when you exit the elevator, so it took me a while to even figure out where the fuck the thing was, you know? Then you finally catch up to it, and what happens is it will be up on the rafter. It turns into like this big ass werecat, and it jumps up into the rafters. And what you have to do is you have to face away from it and stay facing away from it. And it jumps down, it creeps up behind you, and then it covers its face for some reason and like raises up on its hind legs, and then it swipes and attacks you. And what you have to do is just in that one moment when it's got its claws over its eyes, you have to turn around quickly and shine your light on it. Now, the best way to turn around quickly and shine your light on it is to hold the right stick and turn around. But if you're trying to hold the A button at the same time to charge your flashlight,
you can't rotate.
This is a very weird fucking hand coordination you're doing, where you've got your fucking pointer finger over the A button and your right thumb on the other stick trying to turn around fast enough, because it's like a split-second window you gotta do this shit. But the thing is that the cat is like glitched to fuck, where it won't jump directly behind you a lot of the time. It will only jump directly behind you if it has like a very clear path to jump on. And like sometimes the shape of the room, like there is nowhere that you can be perfectly looking away from the cat, because it'll only come down if you're not looking at it at all, and it will only go like directly behind you if there's like enough space. So sometimes it's difficult to even figure out where can I stand to make this cat come down and not get stuck on anything and not just like walk around, see my face and jump away. And then like you have the spinning around, which is finicky. In one of the later fights, it dodges your blast and then jumps away, and that's also a pain in the ass. It's a fucking disastrous boss fight. You have to do it 3 fucking times for each of its tails while re-exploring old areas. It's a fight that happens twice, and even when you finally beat it, it doesn't even have a unique animation for going in your vacuum. It just gets sucked in. Like, oh, that's finally over. Like, what a fucking waste of time. That really, like, again, this is like a small part of the total game, but it is like an hour and a half maybe if you include like the mouse encounter, somewhat confusing of these things that are like they total waste of time. And like it's not that they had no merit. It's that, like, I would have rather gone to another floor. There's already backtracking through certain areas for other reasons. Like, you know, it's a game that just feels padded. And sometimes the backtracking is justified because it goes into, like, a whole different wing of the floor. And you're like, okay, this is something new. I only had to go through a few of the same old rooms, but I'm basically in a new area. But, like, towards the end of the game, even when that was happening, like, when I had to go back down to the basement floor to save the toad to get the fucking electricity thing, I was just like, I don't want to go back to B2. Because B2 was also a pain in the ass, because that's the water level where you have to control the floaty by sucking or blowing, and it's really confusing. And the boss, that boss took me like 6 tries because I could not figure out how to fucking hurt him.
Which one was that? I can't remember.
The guy on the floaty, the redneck floaty
that's
pool
right,
guy.
that's right.
And like, it seems like obvious that you're supposed to, like, okay, so this boss fight, I'm just going down like a laundry list of all these things that confused and bothered me in this game. And like, I know there's going to be people who are just like, Digi's a noob, he's a shit gamer, he couldn't figure out what to do, he's just retarded. And like, obviously these things will not bother you on a second playthrough. I just want to get all this out there. Like, I still give this game a good score, you know? I still like it, but I want all these things on record because it's just like, some of this is so avoidable. And like in this boss fight, you're in a pool of water surrounded by spikes. You're on a floaty. The controls are really confusing. And you're fighting a boss who's shooting mines at you. And it seems really obvious because you can pick up the mines and fire them that you're supposed to fire the mines at him and pop his thing and then suck him up. But that's not what you're supposed to do. And sucking up the mines is really difficult, so if you spend a while trying to do this and trying to hit him with them, then you're wasting your fucking time. You're going to die. What you actually have to do is just when he's, like, if you get close to him, he swings at you. And if he swings at you, like, twice, he just spins out and gets confused. You stun him, vacuum him, shoot him at the spikes. And then you have to get out of the pool, shine him with your flashlight, and start sucking him up. And it took, like, getting all of that down took me, like, 5 or 6 deaths to figure out all of those steps and do them all correctly.
That one was frustrating. It was definitely one of the more frustrating bosses. Anything involving the water, the controls on the floaties and stuff, you use the actual suck and pull of the vacuum to move when you're in there. Yeah.
I was equally frustrated by the dance boss on the 14th floor. Where you have to
because I didn't figure out, I didn't know how to fucking do that, but luckily Egad told me eventually. I don't know, get the one.
The problem I had wasn't, like, once he told me about, like, the fact that I had to identify which dancer was the one that was different, I didn't know how to interact with it. Because you had to use, like, the ground pound attack, but I had tried every other thing first, you know? Because, like, what a weird and rare and random, and why would that have to do with this particular theme of the dancing shit, you know? Like, it just didn't make any sense. And even once you know how to do it, it's hard to do. And,
that's true.
that boss was a pain in the dick. But, like, I mean, I still enjoyed the concept of it, and there were plenty of boss fights that I did enjoy. I think about, like, the ship boss. That one was, like, it was challenging, but, you know, like, getting a barrel before they would blow up while dodging the face is hard. But you throw the barrels into its mouth. It's not an overlong fight. It's like a big spectacle, and then you have the second half where...
That one had one of my favorite set pieces in that second half, where you have to suction and you hang onto the string as the whole fucking ship tilts up, and the camera angle changes, and you're dangling over the jaws of death below. What a great moment that was. I felt so much tension. I loved that fight. I thought it was great.
And, like, when it comes to set pieces in video games, like, for me, I tend not to enjoy, like, a lot of just, like, random things that pop up and happen for, like, a second in a game. There's a lot of that in this game. There's stuff like that actually, like, uses the mechanics where it's like, you know, you're safe during that little scene if you've pulled off the maneuver, but, like, you know...
Well, you know, I never tested, because in that scene, generally speaking, when you're holding onto those strings, you have to keep holding down the vacuum thing. I was holding onto that button for dear life because I felt so much tension, and I never tested letting go because I was too scared. I thought I would die.
Right, exactly. Same. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great moment. And there's a bunch of good stuff. There's a bunch of... cool bosses or weird moments. Some of them are more frustrating than others. Some of them are more confusing than others. Some puzzles are more confusing or frustrating. Some of them are kind of fun. I enjoyed some of the puzzles in the Pharaoh's Tomb. Other ones, annoying. Parts where, like, something happens to Luigi and he's gradually losing health, so you have to, like, eject Gooigi and defeat it really quick.
Yeah.
Those moments, really great concept, but also kind of annoying because you automatically lose health with Luigi no matter what when those things happen. And it's like...
it's a little frustrating.
So usually they'll give you a heart afterwards, though, so, you know, it's like... But again... The funhouse trade-offs, the way when they use the mechanics in interesting ways, they're fun. But, like, the first time I fought a Mimic, I was like, oh, awesome, great idea. And it uses the reality gun thing. I thought that was really clever. But then, like, the 10th time I'd fought a Mimic, I was like, I just want to make it to the next room. Please don't close me off from the next room and make me fight a Mimic.
Especially because with the Mimics, you have to, like, shoot a bullet at them. You have to find an object and shoot it. And getting that to happen at the right time, I found very frustrating in some of those situations.
There are moments in this game where you have to find an object to shoot at something and you cannot find an object nearby easily. There's just a lot of, like, weird little... unpolished things about this game that is very polished in a lot of areas. Like, having as many secrets as it has, having as much detail as it has, it feels very thought out. It feels like they had a great plan, but I don't feel like they executed the plan perfectly. You know, it feels like I ran into a lot of bugs, you know, like there were moments where things visually glitched out for a second or, you know, got stuck in walls, and like a lot of the time they corrected themselves. None of it was ever like game ending, but you know, I felt like, I don't know, were they like rushing this to get it out on Halloween? I have no fucking idea, but it just felt like, man, this could have used a little more time in the oven. Maybe there'll be an update patch and fix some of these bugs, or
probably,
you know, I have no idea. But like, this is the state of games now, is to ask these sorts of questions.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But like, will I ever replay this to even take advantage of the fixes? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, probably not either. And, you know, I appreciate that the game was largely physics-based. Like, this, again, ties into my issue kind of with, like, the money scattering and how it's so hard to get every single thing. I can't imagine, like, it would be so frustrating to try to do a playthrough of this game to, like, get every single coin that's around with knowing that they disappear so quickly when they're on the ground. And the fact that some can just, due to the nature of the physics, fall into spaces that you just can't reach due to basically no fault of your own. You know, you've always got a little bit of agency on how you suck and where you push and stuff, but that's got to be endlessly frustrating for, I mean, if you're going to go for the 100,000 or if that's even possible or whatever. But on that front, I must say that while we're discussing, I don't know, like the gimmicks and the amount of content, I just found this game really, I was surprised with how much love I felt put into every individual floor and how distinct they all were from each other. And the fact that there were 15 floors that were all totally different gimmicks or had their whole different, like everyone had its own boss, everything had its own little stuff to discover and all these rooms to suck up. It just, it felt really like people gave a shit while they were making it. And sure, not everything was perfect. I totally agree on that. But I just was really won over by how much, like, you go into a room, right? Someone designed that room. Someone chose, we're going to put towels here. We're going to put, you get to, like, the 13th floor, whatever. It's like the weightlifting. It's like the gym floor, right?
I liked that level.
I thought it was great. I loved it. And you fight, like, a swimming, totally buff ghost in there. It was hilarious. It was great. You got to shoot, like, volleyballs, water polo balls or whatever at him. And, you know, there's, like, towels, there's barbells, there's all these 3D elements that were created just for that floor. Just for this one floor to give it the theming, and they felt so distinct. Like the dancing floor, 12th floor, 13th, or whatever it was. This whole Luigi gets a unique animation while you're fighting that boss, where he's standing in place and just doing a little snap of his fingers and dancing in place while everyone's dancing.
Dude, that's
so much
that's
love.
The crazy stuff, like the weird little unique animations. Like there's the third toad that you get, you like spend some time with, and like when you climb ladders, he jumps on your back and rides with you, and it was just like, man, that's really thoughtful. What a weird detail. Like they clearly knew from the, I think this game, they planned out like everything from the start of development, like exactly what it was going to be.
Yeah.
You know, like, all right, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. You're going to get to this floor, and that's when you're going to hit a Boo Kitty, and that's going to like lead you down here. At this floor, you're going to have to go back and get Toad. Like, and we're going to do this and this to make that interesting. And like, they, like, credit where it's due, I never felt like it was 100% shit when I had to go back to those places. And like, you know, the part with Toad, there was see, like, I got somewhat frustrated because you're supposed to like break a bunch of structures using Toad.
Yes,
which
that's
like
right.
Were not breakable with anything else. And like, it does not logically follow that for some reason Toad's head is more capable of breaking these things than all the other objects you had thrown at them. So it's not necessarily intuitive that you throw Toad at all these fucking things. It was a little, you know, another place where I wasted some time trying out too many different possibilities. But nonetheless, like, you go through a different section of B2 that was unique aesthetically from the previous one, and gameplay-wise, you did not have to swim through it again. You pass through the area you've been before on foot now that it's drained, and then you go to a new area. So, like, it wasn't terrible as a backtracking thing. But, like, at the same time, when you do backtrack in this game, like, I think about, like, the Metroid games, right, which all involve backtracking throughout. But like in a Metroid game, when you get to the end of a level, you get like a new power, and you immediately remember all these things you've seen before where you know that power is going to be useful.
Yep.
So, like, you're excited to backtrack because, you know, maybe you're not going to go through everywhere you've been before with this new power, but, like, you might, you at least are going to figure out how to continue by bombing stuff you know to bomb. In Luigi's Mansion, like, you don't really pick up new powers throughout the game. Like, you get one later or so, but, like, most of it you get really early on.
How about that final one with the electricity plug thing that I used, I think, twice in the whole game?
Yeah,
if I remember.
exactly.
Maybe there's more I missed. There probably are, like, secrets out there, but
I think there are
them.
some earlier in the game, but, like, yeah, I don't even remember seeing, like, many places to use it, and maybe, like, one or two. So I don't even know where those are. And you get it, like, right at the end of the fucking game. It's very strange. But, like, yeah, when you're going back through areas you've been before, you don't feel like, oh, I gotta do all these new interactions with them. Now, granted, sometimes there's new ghost encounters spring up. Maybe this trash can turns into a mimic, and now you can get gold from it again. You're gonna see a different angle of this floor because there's gonna be a new enemy here. That's all fine and good, but still, like, I'm going back through new areas or old areas with no new abilities, and I feel like I'd rather be continuing through the main story. But, like, all of the floors that do exist are great, you know?
Yeah.
Like, as a linear game, this is a much more interesting game than as an exploration game because it's like it's like fun to always see what's going to be on the next floor. And, like, the first game was more about, really this one mansion. Like, it was cohesive. It told a story. And, like, exploring it was more fun to go back through it because you would learn more about it. You know, you'd have more context. In this game, each floor is really its own world. They are not interconnected at all. There's no, you literally have to go through the elevator to get to any floor. There's no, like, secret passages between floors like Mario Odyssey with its worlds, like with the paintings and shit like that. Nothing like that, which would have been great, and I would have liked to see it.
No emergency staircase in this hotel? That's not up to code, guys. That's not up to code. Yeah. That's fucked up.
And all of that, again, adds to, like, why, even though I do still think I would probably get 100% in this game just to see what all happens, and I don't think it would take forever. Like, I think it would be an amount of time that, like, I would not go for 100% in Mario Odyssey because it would take a fucking eternity, you know? Yeah. This game, it's a more manageable 100%. And, like, again, just the basic using the mechanics on things is fun. Like, it just feels good, and everything looks great, and the environments are cool, and I don't mind re-exploring them, especially if new things pop up, like, once or twice. But, like, it really is more of a game where it's, like, the excitement of seeing the level for the first time, learning the gimmick, seeing what all was done here, and then moving on. And, like, I didn't think it ever really explored any gimmick to the fullest. I never felt like, wow, they really fucking fully realized that one, but I appreciated a lot of them, you know.
Yeah, they made a trade-off, I think. They gave up that Luigi's Mansion 1 and, I don't know, Metroid stuff, cohesiveness of a world. Kind of like the Dark Souls 1 approach of an interconnected world or whatever. They just said, like, we're not doing that. We're doing independent floors. You go there, it's its own unique unit. You explore that, and then you leave, and you're on to the next one. New gimmick, new environment or whatever. And they were beautiful. They were flashy. There was a lot of love put into each of them. But I mean, we sacrificed that. It would have probably been cool. Like, at the end of a great Metroid game, you'll often get that moment where, like, you know, there'll be those, like, secret passages. I think at the end of Metroid Fusion, there were all these passages. I mean, this happens a lot throughout the games, but I remember you finally accessed, like, this one passage that you were never able to get to, and that was, like, the one, like, secret access shaft that reveals that, like, oh my god, they're growing Omega Metroids here, and, like, you could have accessed it all along, and now knowing that's there, it, like, recontextualizes the entire point of the entire facility. And that's, like, story driven as well as gameplay connected, because it's like a new passage that you may not have been able to access until this point in the game, and now you have access to it. And we didn't do any of that. There's, like, basically no story whatsoever. We're not interested in, like, exploring the depths of why this hotel is here, or, you know, what's the lore behind it. No, there's ghosts. They kidnapped your friends. And, like, kill the ghosts, get your friends. That's it.
At the risk of, like, I feel like, we're complaining a lot about this game that I did overall like, but it's just because, like, there were so many weird things in there that did nothing for me, like the cutscenes that, like, again, are unskippable and, like, it's not that the game is like overloaded with cutscenes, but the first game had like 3, you know, like there was really all the storytelling was environmental or through the course of the boss fights. In this game, usually you get an introductory scene with the boss of the level, and then a scene after you defeat them, or something like that, or right before you fight them or something like that. So, you know, you get a little bit of interaction with these bosses, but none of them are interesting or memorable at all. Like, they all just have very one-note personalities. Their scenes are just kind of little jokes that aren't really memorable or funny.
I guess I liked the director guy because he's got his little movie he makes. Yeah, that was cool.
And he's the only one who you really interact with. I mean, he actually has dialogue. He participates with you, and he has kind of an interesting ending in that you don't have to kill him. Like, he just he gives you the button because, like, that floor, for all of the pain in the ass that it was, the ending of it was very memorable. Doing the whole monster kaiju battle boss fight was really fun and hilarious. You know, it looked a lot like Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee for the GameCube, which I thought was interesting. It, like, kind of controlled similarly. But yeah, so, like, that whole arc was fun, and that made him, he's probably by far the most memorable boss ghost in the game, right? Like, does anybody else even compare? Other than, like, the T-Rex, I guess.
Nobody comes to mind.
Which was just like turned out the T-Rex was just possessed by, like, a generic caveman ghost.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was all right.
Whatever.
Okay.
Most of the bosses, not that memorable. And, like, I think about a game like Dead Rising, which I remember a lot of the bosses in that game, even though they followed a similar formula where it was just like you meet them, you get a cutscene before you fight them, a cutscene after you fight them where they die. But each of them was like an insane person in some kind of really unique, crazy, fucked up way. Like, you know, a clown dual-wielding chainsaws, or one's like a redneck who's holed himself up in the gun store, or like a veteran who's having PTSD flashbacks and thinks he's in Nam, and, like, you know, or a cult leader who's in the movie theater and sacrificing people on, like, the stage. Like, these are memorable, iconic visuals, and they all die in, like, unique, horrific ways. And, like, obviously this game doesn't need to be edgy like that, but because the ghosts are just used to, like, tell little jokes and not to have, like, some kind of pathos or motivation or, like, specific personality, they're just not memorable. And so, like, to dedicate this time to cutscenes that you can't skip, that are boring. And by the way, if you lose a boss fight and there's a cutscene before the boss fight, you have to watch that cutscene again. Super annoying. Well, and granted, like, the game is never so difficult that this becomes, like, a huge pain, like it does in a lot of RPGs, you know, where you gotta fucking sit through a 15-20 minute cutscene before you fight the boss again. Very fucking annoying. But, like, it's still there. And, you know, it's just, like, one more thing that, while some of the actual fights were memorable, like, some of the bosses might not have had that much of interesting personality, but at least the boss fight had, like, weird enough mechanics, like the guy you mentioned, the gym bro. You know?
Shooting the balls at him. You have to, like,
he has no unique personality at all. But
that's true. But the unique issue there is that he's in a pool. He shoots water. That means, like, Luigi's biggest weakness is water. That's, like, an obstacle you have to figure out how to deal with, so you can put Luigi in the right place to fight against him and do that stuff. But by the way, on the subject of the animations, by the way, it was or of the cutscenes rather. I think that the reason people like me feel such frustration with that is that, like, this game has something that I love, and it's these little moments. Now, one might think they're annoying. Generally speaking, I like to have as much control over my character as possible when I'm playing a game, and cutscenes are obviously a hard cut. You're not getting that. But what you'll see is, because this game has so many little moments where you're still, like, in the same perspective of gameplay, now that we haven't cut away or anything, but Luigi will pull on a switch, activate something, and something happens. And because this is like a horror game, right? This is like a spooky game. Luigi is a set character with a personality. He will, like, have a unique animation or a reaction, like, in the position. The camera is still at the same position. We're not swirling away or losing control of the character. You are technically losing the ability to control him briefly, but you feel like you're still playing the game, and not that we've just switched perspective and totally ripped away that stuff. And there were many of those moments that I really, really enjoyed, but then to go to a cutscene where it's like, oh, now we're doing, like, a big we're swirling the camera around, and Luigi's going, oh, whoa, 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 for like a full fucking 30 seconds while we set up this super memorable boss that I'm going to forget 10 seconds after I beat him. Like, there's a huge distinction between those two things, and I just wish we did more of the good one, the shorter one, the in-game one, as opposed to the cutscenes.
While we are talking about like cinematic perspective, though, like this game does do a lot of clever things with like the meta of how games work, such as the camera, where you have these moments where you might be in a room, and let's say you vacuum or you suction cup the closet door and you vacuum it open, and it opens a closet that actually goes deeper, like, than the length of the house would imply. You know, like it should be up against the wall of the outside of the house, but you open it and it goes back 10 feet. Oh, cool. Ghost closet, right? You go into that closet and the camera pulls in and goes to the closet door as you walk in. So you've got this neat perspective shot of you going down the closet. But the camera is always attached to the south wall, no matter what. You are never going to see the south wall of any level, even though the south wall exists. And if you get close to it, you can see what's on it. And you can see it through mirrors, which allows you to
those mirror things,
interact with it sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is all really clever and cool and adds to exploration. And, like, those moments really make walking around the hotel seem fun. And you get more of that in the early game because the game, it kind of radically shifts. Like, the first few hours, the first few floors are just a regular hotel, which is much more similar to Luigi's Mansion 1. And even at the very start, when you first go from basement floor 1 to floor 1, you do so via a staircase, not the elevator. That's the only time it ever happens in the game. That I know, like, unless there's secrets that I don't know about. But, like, you never again have two floors that are connected by anything other than the elevator. And, like, as you go up, the first, like, 5 or 6 floors are pretty normal hotel floors. But then at some point, all of a sudden, you're, like, in a gladiatorial arena. And even though it seems like it's staged to be some kind of, like, fun spectator thing for, like, you know, people visiting the hotel, as you keep going up, you get to certain floors
like
that are just, like...
the fucking desert one that's just, like, an open desert expanse. You can see that it's fake. You can see, like, the back walls and, like, stars painted on the walls and stuff. But still... totally nonsensical.
Well, because, like, that particular floor, like, when you first get there, it's like, okay, there's, like, vents pumping sand into the room. The room is absurdly tall, but, hey, maybe this floor is just really tall.
But
then you enter the pyramid, and it goes, like, fathoms deep. Is it cutting through floors of the hotel, or is just, you know, again, ghost logic? Like... At first, it seems like this hotel spatially makes sense, but at this point, it can't. Now there can't be any relationship between these floors if it's going to be designed this way. You know, it's just like Dark Souls 2, where like it's like a fake interconnector. You go up this elevator, and it's like, well, there's no way that this area should be above this area. You know, but like. Yeah, like it again. It feels like more of a level thing. Now, I still enjoyed the Pharaoh's Tomb area because it was a neat theme to use for the vacuum.
I sucked up every piece of sand on that fucking desert. Every desert level.
I did most of it.
The desert island I did. I had to do it all. I have to get it all. There could be a secret under that one patch I skip over. And you know what? I fucking loved it. I loved every second of sucking up that sand.
But yeah, like, I mean, that was like, when I got to that level, like, when I first saw the tomb, I was just like, why? And then as soon as I realized you could suck up the sand, I was like, well, okay, it's a game with a vacuum. Why not, you know? And so, and like, you could also manipulate the sand with the vacuum, and you had to use that for
you
puzzles
could push it to make ramps and stuff, which is pretty cool, which is pretty great stuff.
It was one of the, like, longer, more interesting, intricate levels, whereas there are certain levels that, like, are really short and, like, don't really explore the theme in that much detail. Or, like, okay, one floor that I was, like, I didn't like it at first, and then I loved it, was the trick floor, the magic one.
Yeah, okay.
And the floor it's all themed around magic, and so, like, everything has, like, playing cards everywhere and, like, all this stuff of, like, you know, basic magician shit. But, like, not that much magical stuff actually happens while you're exploring for the most part. So at first I was like, this really isn't delivering that much on the theme, but at the same time, that floor was the first one in a long time that had kind of looked like a regular hotel. And it felt more like this is a hotel floor that is styled after magic, as opposed to, like, you know, just an Egyptian fucking tomb in the middle of the hotel.
So, like,
it
would make sense.
it was kind of like, okay, well, this feels like this could have been the game, could have been a bunch of like hotel floors that are themed around something but still make sense as a hotel, you know? But like at the same time, I felt like it was under delivering on its theme until you start you have to backtrack through it, except that every time you go through a door, it takes you to a totally different room that are not in order. So it fucks with your mind for a little bit, and that was kind of neat, and there's different encounters in those rooms as you go back through, but ultimately it amounts to just an enemy gauntlet. Like, you go into another random room, and then you just fight a bunch of enemies. Eventually you get to the boss. It was one of the more fun boss fights, and one of the better character designs was the three magician girls, the blonde magician girls. They were cute. Like as ghosts, and there's also a strong design with the DJ ghost on floor 14, with the fake afro, and like so there's moments where I'm like, okay, that's a more memorable or better design. Okay,
you know what I loved about that fight though, by the way, when you beat the DJ lady. Like you don't, in that fight, you don't suck up her dancer boys who are hiding the thing. And then when you get back to the elevator, they all show up right at that moment to fight. And I was like, continuity, baby. That's what I like to see. It was good. It was good.
That moment was really satisfying just because of the fact that like that boss had been so frustrating and they let you kill them all without the masks on. So it's basically just pure catharsis. Just murder them all.
What a great moment that was.
Thank God. But I mean, at the same time, it feels like, you know, it's only satisfying because it was already frustrating, you know.
I see you. I see your point.
But the Egyptian boss, like that one took me a few tries to figure out what the fuck I had to do because it was kind of oblique. But like once I did, like I thought that was one of the more fun bosses just because it was more like a video gamey pattern recognition, like took some level of skill. You know, and granted, like I always had a problem in certain boss fights that require you to like run away because Luigi takes some time to pick up speed. Yeah. So it's like if you try to like suck and then run and do different things, and the boss is coming at you fast, like you really got to learn the patterns and time it just right, or else you're gonna get hit a lot. And I tended to die before I fucking learned the patterns for the first time.
Yeah,
but it sounds like you had a much easier time with that. Maybe you just played more carefully than I did.
Possibly. I had trouble with that boss, though. I remember, I mean, I only died like to one boss before King Boo at the end. But I mean, that one was difficult. It's just when I would get down to low HP, I'd be like, oh shit, time to manage my resources carefully. And most of the bosses were fairly generous in that there was like at least a few sources of hearts. In fact, that might have actually been the one boss I died at. I can't quite remember, but I remember having a difficult time with that. And but there's like a couple of sand piles around or whatever that you can get the boss to put their attacks onto, or you can suck up or whatever to give you a couple of hearts. So they're a little bit generous with those. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I remember having a good time with that boss and with all the ones with like a clear difficulty kind of elevating mechanic that you use in a unique way to fight against them and their particular theme thing. It was just a lot of them were a lot of fun in that way.
I mean, I was definitely impressed that they had so many boss fights that were so unique because like that's where it really utilizes the huge suite of mechanics in the game. And granted, it was still sometimes really confusing to figure out which ones to use because there wasn't always good indication. The huge, weirdly prominent problem in this game, in my opinion, was just like communicating which mechanic to use. Like there should be some kind of visual calling card like there was with the plungers, but then sometimes you had to use the plungers to just knock stuff off of people's heads and there is no circle. So, you know,
when it was there, it worked.
Consistency would be nice. Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
But nonetheless, like because there were so many mechanics, once you did learn a boss pattern, it could be really satisfying. Or like
once you know all the steps to execute them, could feel really satisfying to do.
And I had really enjoyed in the early part of the game when it was more like a regular hotel, just like, you know, figuring out how to get onto like a ledge you had seen in a different room. Like it almost feels like they changed the game they were making after the first few floors. Because like the early part of the game is way more similar to the first game. And like the addition of the mechanic where they would have holes in the wall that you could look through and you could see that there was like another room and it's like, ooh, how do I get there? Like, and then you would try to figure out how to get there based on that. That's a great fucking mechanic. It's really only used on those early floors, though, the ones that are more hotel-like, because like the hotel has this intricacy to it where, and they really think about things like, okay, if there's an escalator in this room, the room underneath that is going to have the gears of the escalator, you know?
Yeah, right,
if there's a toilet in this room, then there's got to be like a little crawl space underneath it where the sewage pipes run or whatever. So like they are constantly thinking about you know, how everything relates to one another, but it's only within the context of like that room, that floor. And in the early game, the entire floor is more interconnected, whereas once you start getting to the themed floors, they're really very linear. It's more about like do the things related, like this one is a castle, and so you have to get past all the traps, you know. This one is the main suite. It's protected by lasers. You have to deactivate the lasers. Like that's the main mechanic we're doing here, you know. And so like there's times where you feel like this is really a game about like slowing down, immersing yourself, collecting everything, looking through windows to find new ways to get places to get, like sucking up all these golden spiders and, you know, finding these explosions of money, being like, I'm the king of money, I'm finding all the money, I'm finding all the gems, all the secrets, I'm fucking getting everything. And then other times you're like, I'm playing a like action game, you know, like we got to get through these puzzles, we got to get through these, you know, boss fights, like, and sometimes it does each of these things very, very well. Some of the boss fights are great. Some of the puzzles are fun. Some of the stuff is great. But then it like sends you back through a level and you're like, well, this I didn't want at all, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the levels kind of are at their best the first time you play through, and any subsequent visits less so, unless there's a new area or something.
Returns.
Yep, that's a main thing. And that's another reason why it makes me think that like another playthrough of the game. I mean, I'm a guy who can enjoy replaying a game that I've like 100%ed or is extremely simple just for the experience of having it again. But this game is uniquely kind of grindy. Like when I enjoyed playing through one time and going to all the rooms and like sucking up like every piece of sand, every dollar, etc., etc. But the prospect of doing that again doesn't strike me as like super fun, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's no New Game Plus or anything as far as I know, but even that aside, maybe if this like mythical 100,000 S tier does exist, and if someone in the world finds it, that might be like, ooh, I do want to do that. I want to achieve that. But I don't know. Don't feel a strong drive. I do have one other subject I wanted to bring up, which was just kind of the issue of like the character and the characters, and I don't know, they're kind of rolling the games and it's sort of tying with gameplay. So I'll just say for the first part, Luigi himself is in fact a separate character from Luigi, and it's like Luigi but a complete detached sociopath who like feels nothing, and was used for some great comedic moments where when Luigi's freaking out and Luigi's just totally deadpan, and that could be really funny at several times for some of those cutscenes. So that was well done. And also, I mean, what do you think the lore ramifications are of, you know, we were both playing this, actually you and I together, we played 2-player for a bit. But then also
definitely talk about that too.
Yeah, which is cool, and there's a couple of multiplayer settings. But when you're playing single player, what are the lore ramifications of the fact that when you press the button, it appears that like Luigi's soul seems to leave his body and enter Luigi? But when Luigi like does something while you're controlling him, you'll see like limply during the like little victory animation, Luigi will go like, "Wow, yeah," and Luigi will kind of go like a little thumbs up, and then just kind of relax back, because I guess the consciousness isn't in his body. I don't know if this is to be explored too deeply. I was constantly curious what the ramifications of this from a lore perspective might be, knowing that the fact that Luigi is not simply an empty vessel. Luigi seems to be a living creature of some kind that Luigi is just possessing temporarily at times. I don't know. I just thought it was funny and interesting.
Very bizarre.
Egad, what have you done?
I thought Luigi is an awesome addition and a great character. He's used in tons of unique ways, in combat, in puzzles, in like, I mean, a lot of the
stuff so
stuff
good
is
just teaming up with Luigi to like when you had to like use 2 suction powers to slam a big fucking ghost. It felt great. I felt such camaraderie.
And like, granted, like there's a lot of the time it's basically just you're using him to do something briefly, and Luigi's not really doing anything. It's just you just have to use Luigi to access these corridors. But like there's a lot of times where they have to cooperate with each other, and like if you play co-op mode in this game, second player controls Luigi. And, like, in the situations where, like, it's really just Luigi going off on his own, which is particularly when you first get him and when we were playing, it really is, like, one person playing at a time, which is not terrible because it doesn't take forever, but, like, particularly on that floor, it basically became my turn to play, which for the first fucking 3 hours or whatever of the game, no, not that long, but like the first few hours I couldn't play.
Yeah.
Like
it took so long to unlock it.
It's not until you get Luigi. I bought this game with the anticipation of us playing it 2-player on stream, and I paid no attention to the game until I was able to play it. Like, when I played back through the part that I had ostensibly watched you play, I did not remember any of it.
Fair enough.
So
I can't blame you.
That's why I started over again, because, like, I played this game with you anticipating, like, we're going to play 2-player, but, like, I didn't become a player until this level, and then suddenly it's my turn to play. Now, we didn't really get far enough to moments where, like, there's a lot of cooperation between the two of you.
Yeah.
But also, like, I think it would definitely be interesting to play the whole game co-op because Luigi is optional most of the time. And, like, during combat encounters, he would undoubtedly be a huge help. And in boss fights where he's not necessary, but he's just a second Luigi. And, like, so playing co-op would definitely make the game easier. And I think it would be a lot of fun. Like, I think I could actually see possibly replaying this game just to play it on co-op with somebody.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
You know, like, and it almost, again, it's another way that it makes me wish the game was shorter because, like, I would like to just blast through it in an afternoon or two, you know, like, this game could easily take you more than 2 days. It took me more than 2 days of playing, like, pretty consistently, you know. I still have to live my everyday life on some level, but I played a lot of this fucking game, you know, and I couldn't quite beat it. But... like, yeah, I think it's a fun co-op game. I like the idea of, like, you're not doing the exact same thing. You have different purposes. Maybe you have to relinquish control for a while at certain points, but it's fine because it's got a good rhythm and you're helpful when you're around. And it's just used for so many interesting mechanical purposes. But, like... it does suck having to wait to fucking get to control Luigi.
Clearly they're trying to ride a line between, like, and they did not achieve this perfectly, but it's kind of inevitable. They probably could have introduced Luigi earlier or something so two people could play sooner. I kind of respect that decision. They didn't compromise, like, the story of their game just so, like, a player could jump in.
Okay. The problem is, though, that, like, the early game, it takes so long to get to the point where you're really playing it.
You're not wrong at all.
Because, like, you've got all these cutscenes, and then you start, like, exploring the mansion yourself, and you don't even have the poltergust. So you already go through a bunch of rooms, then you get chased by this thing, you fall down the chute, you get dropped into this this room, and, like, I spend a lot of time just in the first basement floor, like, you know, even after I had the poltergust, sucking everything up, exploring everything, testing everything out. You have, you know, extensive tutorials for every mechanic. The game really wants to make sure you know what you're doing. And, like, granted... and this is, I'm going to say this as a compliment. This game is way more accessible than Luigi's Mansion 1, in my opinion. Because when I was a kid, I never beat Luigi's Mansion 1 because I considered it difficult. The controls were confusing. And, like, it was the first game that Nintendo ever developed with dual stick controls. And, like, they originally intended to rely on it more, but they ended up scaling it back and trying to make it easier to play the game without really having to use the C-stick. So, like... even though the C-stick was developed in, like, conjunction with the game, I don't know, it's confusing. They didn't make the right choice. They should have made a bigger C-stick on the fucking GameCube. They should have made it 2 analogs.
Yeah, I think it's beauty as fuck.
Now we're on the Switch. We have 2 analogs. It works that way. There's a lot of new mechanics that have been added in to make it smoother, auto-aim, auto-targeting, latching onto ghosts and being able to fucking throw them against the pavement. They don't freak out nearly as much as they used to. So, like, the game is easier on a moment-to-moment level, but it asks you to do much more complex things mechanically, and the boss fights can get really challenging, you know? So, like, ultimately, I thought, like, it doesn't punish you nearly as hard as the first game does, because in that game you have to, like, run back through a long, you know, set of areas, pick up hearts again if you want to have full health, but, like, you wouldn't have died as many times, or at least I wouldn't have died as many times.
Sure.
But like in this game, you know, I felt like there were some legitimate challenges that were fun to take on, and I thought that was like a worthwhile trade-off. Like I didn't mind that it was easier in certain ways because it was harder in other ways, and it just made the game less like annoying in that regard. Like I found the first game to be frustrating when I would die because I had to do so much to get back to where I was.
Yeah.
In this game, death, you know, it makes you watch a frustratingly long cutscene, and even if you have the item that brings you back to life when you die, you still have to watch a frustratingly long cutscene. But nonetheless, you know, it was fine. I thought that the game was more inviting, and that like even like younger people who played this, as long as they have the hints on, might be able to like at least play more of it than I did of Luigi's Mansion as a kid. Like I had the game, I probably never played more than a couple hours of it because I found it confusing and hard, you know, until I was an adult when I finally went back and beat it. But like this game, I think you would get a lot of value out of it even if you just like played through the early part and just collected shit obsessively. Like I could see there being people who would just want to vacuum and veg out. Like this would be a game you just throw on. A game you just throw on every once in a while when you just want to vacuum shit up for like a few hours, you know?
That's what
Maybe
I did,
collect
basically.
a few things that you want to go back through floors for, you know?
Yeah, and if I went back, that's what I would
game.
do. Put on some podcasts or something, go suck up, explore stuff. Yeah.
But having said that, though, the fucking vacuum noise, like, the vacuum noise is constant. You're always going to hear it because you're always vacuuming everything at all times. So the entire game, you're hearing, and like they could have made it less annoying. They could have. It's not that it was super annoying, but you hear it the whole game. So it was just like, man, you could have toned down the fucking vacuum noise because like it's kind of loud in the mix, you know. It's a vacuum. They had to make it somewhat loud. It's not like crazy loud like a real vacuum, but like, you know, it's very audible over the music and all that stuff. And like the sound effects in the game are good. The music is mostly just like hanging in the background. It's not that memorable.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any tunes as memorable as like the main theme from the first game. But you know, they're kind of set the scene. Whatever. It's spooky background music. I didn't pay much attention to it. But the vacuum noise was constantly going. So like this is not a game I wanted to play with the audio turned up and like paying full attention to the music and everything. Like I was playing podcasts over it for most of the time.
Yeah, me too.
And like I'm somebody who does that with a lot of games. I'm not always somebody who listens to all the music because I'm particular about like having to hear the same songs over and over and over again. But like you know, this is a game I probably would have played with the sound on had it not been for the fact that like that vacuum noise is so incessant. And a lot of the early game, there's not even music. Like there's a lot of silent parts where you're just kind of wandering around vacuuming shit up and listening to that fucking.
Yeah, throughout the whole game. You know, that never bothered me, that particular sound. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's all there is to it. But it is true. I really didn't spend much of this game just listening to it. There's not a lot to listen to. You'll probably get a more atmospheric experience. But this game, I struggle to think that this game could be particularly scary for anyone. So, like, is there much to be lost by not paying attention to, like, every little bit? If you're playing, like, a game with, like, a really good story that you want to get immersed in, I mean, that's one situation. But this game is kind of like, it's like a Marvel movie, or it's, like, each floor is, like, a different Marvel movie. I'm thinking like Red Letter Media's description. Like they're each a different theme park ride. You're just going for a ride.
Yes.
There's nothing to dive into too deeply. Yeah.
This game is a theme park ride. Like it is a roller coaster. It's a fun house. It's all about that constant ebb and flow of different things happening all the time.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And like even though most of them are the same on some level, you're gonna do a lot of repeated tasks, you're gonna open a lot of drawers, you're gonna pull a lot of bed sheets off, and the results will usually be the same or slight variations of the same few things. But anytime something unique happens, it immediately draws your attention.
Feels good.
And you just meticulously search everything in hopes of finding those cool secrets. But
and it works.
Yeah,
it works.
The graphically, this game in comparison to the first one, because like, you know, obviously there's a huge graphical leap in fidelity between the GameCube and the which was not in HD, even though it did have like the best graphical capabilities of the era, arguably. since Metroid Prime was like the best looking game of that console generation.
GameCube stands over here.
But this is on the Switch. The Switch does not have the highest graphical capabilities of this generation, and it's also a handheld. So like, there's definitely been in all the Switch games that I've seen, Nintendo using the sort of shortcut of making things shiny, of like. Of this certain kind of like sheen that they put on their games. They've been doing it since the Wii U, because that game, console also had the ability to go onto a handheld, where like I think that their textures are less detailed, more shiny. They're more about popping, and like this game still looks great because the art design is fantastic, and there's tons and tons and tons of unique assets. I don't think that the individual assets are as aesthetically beautiful to me as they were in the first game. And granted, the first game was all just mansion stuff, so it reused probably more of the same assets, didn't have as many distinct ones, wasn't nearly as huge of a game world. That game is literally 5 hours long, like maybe, up to 8 if you really spent time doing everything in it, but like it's not a long game. So they didn't have to build that much. All of it could be really doted on. This game has an incredible amount of it that all looks great. But I don't know if like the individual, because like when we first started playing, my first thought was like, I don't know if I like the way this looks as much as the first game. But then like just seeing so many unique places, so many unique like ways to design a room, to recontextualize those same types of objects into something new for that floor, it was just like, wow, they really put a lot of fucking objects in this goddamn game, and so many of them are manipulatable, and so many of them have unique interactions.
So many unique animations, so many unique items. I mean, that if anything, that's like the number one selling point for me, that they put so much heart into all that shit.
So it's like both games have their strengths. Like if the first game versus this game, if I had to pick a favorite, like there were things I criticized about the first game in my review of that one, and the fact that it is kind of a short arcadey game with like that doesn't have perfect controls. I don't think it's as satisfying to play as this game is, like on a raw like feel level. Maybe some people would disagree with me who are huge Luigi's Mansion fans, but like I would put this game like almost on par with the first one, even though I think it's way more flawed, just because it has so many. It just has so much in it that is fun. There's so many floors, so many assets, so many things to suck up, so much time to fucking waste, and like.
I definitely get the sense your highfalutin game critic types are probably going to lean more on the original version based on all the stuff that we've been hearing. And this one is more popcorn entertainment mostly. Even though, again, satisfying controls.
Depends on
really
the game
enjoyed the
critics
gameplay
you're
loop.
asking. Like, I feel like mainstream critics would probably prefer the new game because I don't think they're going to mind.
My mind, of course, goes to Matthew
like
Matosis. He is the archetypal one in my brain.
Yeah.
Something tells me he'd prefer the original.
So, like, I was still graphically impressed with this game in terms of, like, how it just looks and feels. But I've been thinking lately about how a lot of these new Nintendo games, I really feel like Nintendo's not the biggest developer in terms of, like, having tons of staff and tons of money. And, like, they don't really bank on all their games being, like, unbelievably successful the way that so many other AAA developers do. And so, like, if Nintendo is going to start trying to make games that are, like, as big as the other games coming out of AAA, they're not going to be able to polish them up to the same level as those games with their smaller development staff and amount of time. But what they can do is create better core mechanics. They're a company that's always fixated on fun. They're about like figuring out what the game is going to play like before they design it. Going all the way back to Mario 64. Like the reason we all love that game is that Miyamoto figured out everything that Mario could do before he started making levels, and the levels are based around what Mario can do. The levels look like fucking toy bricks, like they're fucking, the graphics are terrible, and the levels are like floating in space half the time. They have like very little context, but and, there's other games that came out around then that are, like, fully fledged RPGs with gorgeous worlds and graphics, but, like, the mechanics made Mario 64 a legend. And the mechanics are what makes Mario Odyssey a legend, even though I think that game suffers aesthetically even worse than this game. Like, I like the look of Luigi's Mansion 3. I hate the way that Mario Odyssey looks, but, like, the game has so much content, so much scale, and it's all, like, fun to play if you like those core mechanics a lot. So, like, you might just go and get every fucking fucking moon, even if it is highly repetitive and like not super, like every single one is unique or polished and like a ton of them are just basic shit and the same shit. Like, doesn't matter. People still love the game because they want to play as Mario. And this game has some of that. It's not as satisfying as Mario Odyssey, but like just going around vacuuming shit, super fun. Vacuuming ghosts and slamming them into each other, super fun.
I forget who said it now, but looking back on it, I kind of do get the feeling that Mario Odyssey was designed for, they really didn't expect people to try to get all the moons, which is very different from like previous games, because there were so many fucking moons in that game, and a lot of them were not particularly fun to get. There's like 8, and it's like a weird number, like 807 or like something weird like that. So I mean, that kind of matches the way that the money is in this game. It's everywhere. You could spend all day going through every single room, but you don't gotta, and you can get most of the rewards just by doing kind of a casual playthrough or whatever. So it's up to the choice of the investment, but it doesn't seem like they expect you to get every single dollar in the game. Obviously, same with the moon. So I wonder if that design sense is pervading the company at all, if it's the same developers.
I think Nintendo, ever since the Wii U, has been doing something really kind of ingenious. I understand why it would be like infuriating to some people who maybe just want games to be like hard all the way through and to really push the mechanics, but like they've been doing this thing where they give you the option to play the game to different extents. And like if you play Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, for instance, the game has 3 books essentially of levels of like 20 levels apiece that each one will show you the end credits when you beat it. So if you just beat the first book, the game's only like an hour long and a child could beat it, and they're going to see end credits and they can say, I beat Captain Toad. So it's basically like the other 2 books are like bonus, except that they continue the story and are literally just the rest of the game.
Okay.
So like, and even beating all of it only takes like an afternoon. But then there's also 3 secret objectives in each level, and doing those is way harder than just beating the game. And also, you don't have to beat every single level to continue. So you see how like there's so many different levels of completion that like even if you completely fucking suck, and even if you can't beat all 20 levels of the first book, you still might be able to beat the first book and see the credits if you're a baby. And knowing me as a kid, like there's a lot of people who are like tough people who are like, oh yeah, when I was a kid I beat all these games, like why do the modern gamers have to be coddled? Look, I did not beat all these games when I was a kid. I sucked at video games. I got stuck all the time.
Still does.
I did not know what to do. Yeah. I fucking I would give up on games because we would just rent a game. I'd get to a point where I didn't know what to do and then fucking just not play it, and we'd have to take it back, and I'd never play it again. Didn't buy all the games I had. So like I was used to that. These new Nintendo games, like I would have felt like I had completed it and not like obsessed over the fact that I hadn't beaten these games for the rest of my life. If they had been this way. And then if you want to go and do this like ridiculous amount of extra shit, all of that is there for you. But is that as valuable as like a tightly crafted experience where every part of it they fully fleshed out and thought through, and like doing 100% doesn't take forever, but all of it is satisfying, as opposed to a game that's like designed to just have lots of fun things in it, but just to have as much as possible, so it takes up as much time as possible, so that you'll buy it and feel like it's worth your $60 when there's like Ubisoft games that have, like 700 hours of content or whatever because you do the same collectathon over and over again. But it's like, they're trying to escalate the market value of their games as perceived by modern gamers, because people will complain if a $60 game is 5 hours long. And like, I understand that people have time to kill, but like, as somebody who wants to balance my life between playing video games and other things, I like shorter games. I like that those GameCube games, like the reason I did like coverage of the early GameCube games is that all of them are about 8 hours long. They're games that you can blast through in a couple afternoons and get back to your fucking life, Play it on the weekend, beat a game every weekend, and you can play through the whole GameCube library, always have a good time. Yeah, that would be an expensive lifestyle if you were actually buying these games, but most of them had tons of replay value. They were designed to be arcadey, played over and over again. They often had, they were difficult, in later stages. Not so much Luigi's Mansion, but, this game is more like just a like play it as long as you feel like. You'll keep finding new things until you reach the point where you've like none of them is going to be so astonishing that you feel like, wow, I really justified spending 100 hours on this game. But at least there's something there. At least some little unique things are going to happen that'll spark joy in your heart. So if you have 100 hours to kill, why not? You know?
Perfectly reasonable perspective there. And, you know, I just, knowing myself and knowing the way that I play games, I know that in my heart of hearts, I am one of these people who prefers I certainly have sympathy for short games. One of my favorite games ever is a Newgrounds game by ASCIIsoft, Tower of Heaven. Tower of Heaven is a game you can beat in 10 minutes, and you can beat that game. And to get 100%, you might need to devote maybe up to an hour to get like the true final ending. Probably less, probably 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and you can complete that game 100%. But that tiny package of a game, it has all the things I love. It has, not only does it have great core mechanics, it's just a 2D platformer. There's like a law system that gets implemented. Complexity increases as you go through the game. But there are secrets that you can unlock. And those secrets, there are 3 secrets you can find in the game. They unlock like a true final ending. It's only a little bit different, but it is different. And that's like the true ending. Like bing bong bing, those are like the bare mechanics I need for like Nate's perfect form of game. So an ability to get a true ending, secrets to unlock, and a feeling of like mastery over the game by being these mechanics. Yeah. And like, so I totally sympathize with that. But that style of gameplay is less Luigi's Mansion 3 and more, or that style of game development is less Luigi's Mansion 3 and probably more like Luigi's Mansion 1. Again, I haven't played it. I'm just going on what I've heard. Yeah. So for personally, having just beaten Luigi's Mansion 3, a lot of great stuff here, but as we said, theme park ride feels less cohesive. I'm somebody who would prefer a game like Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, Metroidvania game, great mechanics, love getting the true ending of that game, did the grinding, one of my favorite games ever, just to play. The mechanics, incredibly satisfying, and it's got this thing I crave of getting the true final ending. Love that game. That's the kind of thing that I crave the most. So, like, again, like you said at the beginning, I was feeling the same thing about this game as your score. Like, something between, like, a 7 and an 8, probably, like, a light 8 for me on this game. Because I had a great time playing it. But I know that it's not my ideal sort of game. It's as you said, directed at a wider audience. So I don't begrudge Nintendo at all for the kind of style of game that they're making. And maybe that is part of their ethos, to make a game that can be played and completed at these different levels of difficulty and whatnot. And that's perfectly fine. It seems like a legit way to make a game. But yeah, I mean, you know, everybody has their preferences and what exactly they want out of a game. So everyone's going to have a different opinion on it.
Let's get into our final thoughts, I guess, right?
Sure.
Do you have any more like specifics you want to talk about or anything?
Oh, you know what? I had one final point, and it was something that you didn't see at the place you got, which is just at the very end of the game, right before you go fight King Boo. Before that, when you beat the lady boss before that, you unlock Mario. And all Mario does...
I thought that might happen.
It does. Sorry. I don't mean to say you unlock Mario like you can now play as Mario. What happens is you free Mario, and like I thought this was clever the way they handle this. My first thought is like, okay, Mario, why doesn't Mario just now win the game? Because he's Mario, you're Luigi, right. You know. What Mario does is Mario just like, he doesn't even give you a chance. He just runs ahead instantly to go save the princess, doesn't hesitate for a moment, which sets a real clear dichotomy with Luigi, which I thought was brilliant, like writing for the character. And he's like, Luigi, come on, hurry up! As you're taking your sweet ass time, like vacuuming every little dollar. And Mario is on these stairs ahead of you, saying, Luigi, let's go! Come on, Luigi, we gotta go get the princess. Fuck the money. It was a real communist attitude, I guess. Whereas Luigi, the green capitalist man, what a hero. By
the way, wouldn't it make more sense if Wario was the one in this game? Just saying.
You know, he does fit that pattern. Though
collecting all the money in the game is supposed to be a Wario thing. I mean, I know this was in Luigi's Mansion as well, but still.
Yeah. Clearly they're sticking with the theme, but maybe Wario's Mansion as the sequel to this, aka Luigi's Mansion 3, could be cool.
No, Waluigi's Mansion.
It's never gonna happen. They hate Waluigi so much. But wouldn't that be great? I still dream one day of a teamed up Mario, Luigi, Wario, Waluigi like RPG with the 4 of them together as like one party.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be incredible? Wouldn't that be incredible? Okay, but the only thing I was gonna say about the Mario point was that so in addition to just like being way more brash and like willing to rushes ahead so you don't even have a chance to like get him to help you other places. He's like, I gotta go save Peach right now. Perfectly in character. It's that as you're climbing just the very last bit to the roof where you do the final battle against King Boo, we see Mario do like these crazy sick jumps and like do insane tricks. He's Mario, he's Jumpman to like climb to the top of the thing, whereas you, Luigi, not only do you seem like you don't do that, you seem like you can't even do that. So you take kind of the long way around finding like ladders and ramps and slowly climb your way up to the top of the roof. And I just thought this was odd. I was like, by the logic of Luigi's Mansion, I'm wondering, does Luigi not have the same Jumpman abilities as Mario? Because in every other game, it's been established that Luigi can actually jump higher than Mario and can do his little air kick thing. Yeah. And
maybe
again,
it's just that he's loaded down with the backpack.
I mean, yeah, there's that too, I guess. Again, this is just one of these little lore points that we will speculate on endlessly, and perhaps we'll never find a true answer. But I thought it was amusing. Anyway, that's the last thing I had to say of substance about the game. So let's get to our final thoughts.
So like my wrap up of the game, just to give like an overview of my opinion of it, like. When I was first starting out, like, aside from being annoyed by the cutscenes, by, like, just how long it takes to get moving and the scripted sequences and stuff, like, once you have the backpack, you have all the mechanics at your disposal, and it's just, like, explore and figure out what to do. The game is immediately tons of fun. Every room I go into, I'm vacuuming everything. I'm trying to find secrets. I'm finding some secrets that, like, clearly I need to come back with future powers to do. Throughout the early rooms of the hotel, so I'm like excited to have like open exploration. You take the stairs from floor B1 to 1, so like I'm thinking there's gonna be more of that, and like I loved looking through the holes, seeing other rooms. It felt like Luigi's Mansion with like just more thought put into the mechanics, more thought put into like how the world could be structured, and what things could be done there. I loved like pointing the dark light at like paintings of gold and it turning into money and stuff like that. Finding secret passages, finding tubes for Gooigi to go through. Having Gooigi was a super fun mechanic, going through all the greats, the parallel control of the two characters, all that stuff. Awesome shit. And like even in those first 5 or 6 floors, I think I went back to a couple of them to like find, because there were rooms on the map that were black, meaning I hadn't been there yet. Right. So like, okay, let me go back and unlock those. And I think the 5th floor, which is the one that Mario and Luigi were staying on, is the last floor that you can go back to once you have the Gooigi power and open up a path that you couldn't go down before. And that's the last time that I remember that happening in any kind of obvious way in the rest of the game. And I explored every room, at least according to the map, I didn't get all the jewels, so maybe there's stuff I missed. But, like, as far as I know, there ceased to be any interconnectivity, any real reason to go back to floors because you don't get any new mechanics till the very end. And so, for the most part, it just became a linear adventure from that point forward. And it was still fun. I enjoyed the floors that were really unique. I loved the Flower Palace floor, which had tons of unique sequences. The part where you get the fucking like chainsaw and you just chop everything in the room to fucking pieces.
I
awesome.
Cut down every piece of grass in that room just to make sure.
Of course. Cleared it completely out. There was tons of unique aesthetic stuff going on in that level. I thought it was cool. There's, the Egypt level is totally fucking out there. The gym level was really fun. Magic level had interesting stuff. There was a few that weren't as memorable, like the gladiatorial arena, which was
I don't even remember that at all. I have no memory.
It's one of the first like themed floors earlier into the game. But it was like basically for me the moment where I started to go like, oh, okay, this is a different game now. Like now we're doing themed floors and we're no longer doing interconnected world. I wanted the interconnected world. I would have liked more of it. It would have incentivized me to explore more if I had more reasons to return to previous floors other than following the stupid cat, which sucked.
I can't believe they didn't do that moment. There's one of my favorite moments, and I believe it's in Metroid Fusion, where you're taking these elevators throughout the whole the system you're in or whatever, and at one point late in the game, as you're a little suspicious of your computer. At one point, the elevator just stops in the middle, and you're like, I can't go left. I can't go right. What do I do? And of course, you try all your things, you power bomb or whatever, and you find an escape, and it like opens up a whole new area of the game. But there's none of that. It's not that deep in this game. There's no interconnection. The floors are totally separate universes from each other, and it's too bad.
So it's like, it's not that I wouldn't be willing to re-explore the whole hotel one more time just because it was fun. Mm-hmm. Some of the floors were really cool. I'm down to find all the secrets, but like, if it had been like the first game where it's this interconnected world that I go back through, or even more like a Metroid game, which I thought it was going to be more like early on because there were so many mechanics that you could do things with, and like, you know, it just made me think about like going back through levels with the scan visor, or like playing Axiom Verge for another really extreme example where there's a bunch of items you can use on every single surface in the fucking game. And, like, you know, I was happy that it didn't seem like I'd have to be that meticulous. Like, I could do it all reasonably in 1 or 2 goes, but I just didn't feel incentivized enough. And, like, the few times I did have to go back through floors were annoying and made me not want to have to do them again. And, like, the amount of achievements and oblique stuff that, like, you'd have to find, like, I could see maybe doing it eventually. But overall, my feelings on this game are, like, the bugs bothered me. The weirdness of like bad communication of what to do at certain times bothered me. The cutscenes that were unskippable bothered me. So like enough stuff was kind of working against it. Enough stuff was frustrating that I did not feel like, oh, I'm super jazzed to play this more. By the way, Pokemon is out, so I'm definitely not playing this anytime soon.
That interrupted my playtime quite a bit.
So give me your final thoughts on it.
Sure. So in brief, I share a lot of your thoughts. Some negative feelings at first about being slowed down with cutscenes. Those continue to happen. The game's a little bogged down with being interrupted by Egad calling you down to his lab and stuff or things like that. But none of that.
Oh, and by the way, I loved the lab. I loved the Virtual Boy as a menu. I liked that there were lots of options you could turn off and on at any time. You could go to the lab at any time.
That teleport to the lab thing, blessed.
Yeah,
absolutely
without
blessed.
having to walk all the way back. And like there's like a shop, so there's something to do with the money, which you can't do in the original. And like I assume that it, you know, reduces the amount you can have in the end, because what you buy with that is like resurrection bones.
I would assume so.
And like tools to find booze and to find gems. So basically you're sacrificing your potential final score if you want to find everything. You know, using these aids. That's clever. You know, and then there's also like a trophy room where you can view everything you've collected. So yeah, I like the lab. I like that it was in that basement area, which is neat. But like, you know, anyway, continue.
Did you do any of the multiplayer stuff? I dabbled just a little bit to see what I tried. Like there's one thing where you actually like there's a new house that you set. It's like the scare explorer thing, and you can choose how many levels you want to explore. I tried to do it alone with one person. You cannot do it alone. You have to have multiple people to do it. So I instantly failed. And the others were just kind of like mini games, like who can catch the most ghosts, using the mechanics of the game.
I know there's supposed to be up to 8 players simultaneously can play this game.
Right.
Well, only cool. Like these weird modes.
Does every person have to have a fucking copy of Luigi's Mansion to do so? Jesus Christ,
I don't think
Nintendo.
so.
No?
I think there's it says on the box like 1 to 8 players. So I think you could just hook up 8 controllers and play these multiplayer levels. But I did not explore what those were. They seemed like basic stuff just to like party games or something.
I mean, the house one that I failed, that one seemed kind of fun to do, and I would kind of like to play with some people maybe sometime. Because it's just like, it's all the same mechanics. Explore a house, suck up shit, discover ghosts, fight the ghosts. You do it like with a squad. You clear out a whole level, you go to the next one. You know, it seems like it might be fun to try, but whatever. Didn't get to do it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Because to finish my point, it's just that the main... So I had some annoyance at the beginning of the game, became less and less of an issue as I went on, as I just sunk myself into the core gameplay loop. Get to a floor, suck up everything in sight, fight the boss, fight the booze along the way, or fight the ghost along the way. I didn't do the booze. Maybe I'll go explore that later. And that loop was very satisfying. I got a lot of joy just out of collecting the money. You suck up a fucking spider, it explodes into a bunch of gold coins. Oh, feels amazing. You open a secret door and $1 million bills just come pouring out, and you spin around, suck them up real fast. Absolutely loved it. There was so much heart. there were so many unique animations and unique like models made for every level. And my favorite thing really was the unique Luigi animations and interactions with things. It felt alive. It kind of reminds me of the way Link in Wind Waker had so many unique facial animations that brought that character to life the way he had like never been in any of the previous Zelda games. I felt that. Luigi felt like more of a character in this game than he has since Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga for the GBA, which is one of the greatest games ever made. Gives so much character to Mario and Luigi, and I felt a lot of that here for Luigi. It was great. This is Luigi perfectly in his element, and it was absolutely wonderful. So there's a lot to love about the game. It definitely feels gimmicky, kind of. It feels theme parky, and so if you like the core gameplay loop, I feel like you would really enjoy playing this game through, which it absolutely did for me. If you are looking for any kind of like depth outside of just this game feels good to play, this is probably not the game for you, and you'll probably be better served playing anything else that's more, I don't know, in that way. So, as I said before, I feel like a light 8, feels about right for the game. Had a great time. Very likely not to play through it again, but I do feel like I may go and try to dig up some of the secrets that I missed, especially those boos. That sounds like that might be a fun quest to take, even if collecting the little gems, the stones and whatnot might not give you anything of worth. So, yeah, that's it. That's my thoughts.
All right, well, that's us on Luigi's Mansion 3. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, because we're going to be talking about our first impressions of Pokemon Sword and Shield on our next video on Friday, the 22nd.
All right.
Nate's already pretty far into the game. I haven't bought it yet, so
I've got 6 gym badges already, baby. 6.
Holy shit.
I'm burning
you might
through
already be done with the game by the time we do our impressions video.
Probably.
So we'll be kind of stilted, I guess, but in any case, maybe we could switch it around and do the Dr. Stone one first then, and just totally fuck up our order of operations.
I'm open to it. I don't care. I don't care about nothing.
We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll end up beating the whole game in the next 3 days. Who knows?
It's addictive.
Also, everybody, we have a subreddit for the KHANTEHNT channel now.
Oh, yeah.
Where I wanted to encourage people to like talk about shows as they air, or talk about the games that we're going to be playing. Leading up to us covering them, just in case like anybody has anything they think that we should take note of, maybe we could share some of our thoughts and hear people's responses, just because we always get corrected on stuff or told about things we didn't know about in the comments. Maybe we could learn about that stuff before we make the videos, if people are interested in participating in discussion on this particular platform. So
worth a shot.
We got a KHANTEHNT subreddit. We also, let us know what you think. There's the thread on that subreddit where I talk about some of the ideas I have for like future merchandise or Patreon stuff for this channel. So, let me know what you think about that shit, if you think it's even a good idea and at what juncture it would be done. Subscribe to both of our channels. Digibro, best guy ever.
Best guy
Links
ever.
in the description.
Digibro. It's all down there, baby. Follow my stuff. Follow Digi stuff. And there's going to be more content coming in your face.
More content.
All Thanks for stopping
by.
That's
all, everybody. Bye.
Bye. KHANTEHNT!